everyone, and welcome to another episode of By the Numbers. I'm your host, Richard Lewis. Joining me, as he always does, is my co-host, the esports historian, Duncan Thorin Shields, getting that post-winter mountain man rugged look going. Very masculine, I approve. And look, we've got loads to go through. We've had an event, so much to fucking talk about off the back of that.
By the way, shout out to whoever made that thumbnail for the last episode.
Oh, yeah.
I enjoyed that one for sure.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, bizarrely, even though, yeah. Well, look, you know, we like to do our themes. So anyway, yeah. Before we get into talking about all of the new storylines, all the new teams have made their debut at Blast. Let's, of course, just shout out to the sponsor, NordVPN. The Steel Series sponsor. Our 3 months is at an end, so thanks to them. It was great working with you. But NordVPN is still here. We'll be announcing a new sponsor for the next episode. And so go to nordvpn.com/RLS if you want to take advantage of that. But first, recurring segment that is as old as the show itself in many ways.
The best, though. One of the callback themes that we do enjoy a lot.
Yeah, so you may remember, if you're new to CS, you won't know who he is. There used to be a commentator called D-Man. I think that was based on the fact that he believes in his mind that he is D-Man. And that's how he got the name, just to give you some interesting context to his ego and narcissism there. But anyway, he used to be a League of Legends commentator, very popular, one of the best. Leveraged community feeling to get a job, quite famously. Basically was one of the first Reddit hires ever in esports. And, you know, got to do his thing over at Riot Games, but then decided, you know what? I am the Senate, he said, and decided to move to ESL with Joe Miller, his partner, in a blockbuster move, become part of the management over there. And then suddenly he was interested in CSGO because that was the biggest game ESL had, because at this point, Riot Games had took League of Legends away from the Intel Extreme Masters. So, what now? Well, he starts basically thinking, I will jump up in popularity by breaking apart established partnerships. And suddenly you don't get Anders and Semler, you get Semler and D-Man. Or actually, you don't get that. You get Anders and D-Man. And so this was happening all the time. Sometimes tricasts out of nowhere. It's me, lads, it's me! In the background, like a squeaky Keith Chegwin. Anyway, we've mocked him and ridiculed him for this. That bridge burnt irreparably for years. So it always warms the cockles of my heart when in his and keep in mind also as well, he left Riot just as they sort of sold all the remaining shares to Tencent, gave that payday up, and then just isn't at ESL in a managerial capacity, and ended up casting PUBG.
And there's one key detail to this story, right, which I understand a lot of people who aren't from the UK unfortunately won't be that familiar with, who the character Alan Partridge is, played by Steve Coogan. But the joke is, like, if you know basically the way that character, essentially I'll give you the brief version. It's a character who in the 80s, you know, was like a big TV show host. But then in like the 90s, he has a series where the idea is, it's like, you know, what happens to us, to like a niche celebrity when they become even more niche. He's just a radio figure at that point. And then the idea is even that sort of going downhill. So what you see in this show later in the seasons we're talking about, it's like, it's just sort of like a guy who's got the ego, but then the problem is he keeps getting met by all of like the tiny slings and arrows of life, doesn't he? So it's essentially like, it's a bit like Ricky Gervais's comedy, if people don't know. There's no laugh track, and essentially you are laughing at the person, not with them in any way. Like, you're just essentially laughing at how shit their life gets. And unfortunately, that is the theme of how we have mocked D-Man. And unfortunately, as you're going to see from this piece here, it just is the way his life's going. Listen, I didn't make it happen. Like, it could have turned around at any point, but I don't know. Like, I don't know if he hasn't been seeing my retweets, all that great self-help shit I do, but like, D-Man, mate, this is getting really dark. Like, the tone just gets so Dickensian, doesn't it? I know.
So anyway, he went back to commentating League of Legends, you know, doing some of the other bits and pieces here. And I think he thought he was going to get, like, maybe picked up and make it back to the big league, and there was going to be a big summer dance. D-Man's coming home. But no, once again, Riot Games have deemed him unnecessary, surplus to requirements. And so he put out a little tweet to express his feelings. Still never really learned how to play the game in that sense that, yeah, whining on social media worked for you once, but generally people don't like it. And he said, being told you're not a specialist in a game you've cast for over 10 years is a little grating. Time to move on. Again. And what's brilliant, what's so perfect about that is, if you remember famously from our D-Man compilation, because as I said, he is a recurring character, we literally had him as the Incredible Hulk going down the road. He's had a green out, as in he's gone mad, and he's had to move on to the next town. All he's trying to do is help, but he keeps turning green and going massive, and he's just there at the end. Just waiting for a car to pick him up and drive him to a faraway town. It's just D-Man's life now. Again.
Well, this thing about this is like, right, we're making it at least funny and doing references to actual pop culture. If that's not what he's referencing, why is he just writing it in that mega manipulative way? Like, oh, well, guess it's just time for me to move on. Again. Right, at this point as well, right? There can't be that many Twitter followers that you even have, and we've really been following your stuff. Like, again, they're only from League, and they're glad you came back and did a bit of League. It's like, what do you mean again? Like, listen, I don't like to cast aspersions on anyone. Technically, I do think anyone can sort of do a Travolta and come back, if they get the right vehicle. Problem is this, like, it ain't working out for D-Man, is it? Like, it just keeps going downhill, doesn't it?
First key to a comeback.
The premise here, as far as I can tell, which is the worst part, is that he's come and done a bit of League, and the problem is, like, let's be real, I think he left League, Richard, like 2015 or something fucking mental. It was ages ago, mate. Like, in his mind, it's not that long ago. Like, to me, he knew it isn't because we've been around so long, but, like, that is an age. Dude, there's fans that have come and gone that are 3 or 4 years in esports. So, like, the idea anyone remembers you now, they're no joke. Like, when you go on a broadcast like that, nobody works for you remembers you. Nobody, like that, nobody. So, unfortunately, you can't really sort of pull anyone's card and be like, I've been in this game 10 years. The joke would be, someone could just fall like a bee and fall, and someone could just go, why the fuck are you here then? You just shut down instantly, you wrecked instantly, aren't you? Like, something you can say to that. And also, again, if you're older like us, you can't also just go with that card. Like, that card would work if you were really young. I'll give you an example, right? There's a player in the LEC right now who was playing for XL, and they basically cut him because Mickey X from G2 was available and wasn't on any team. And so they cut this guy after like 3 weeks of LEC, and he's only played one split before. Now, when he did it at a twit longer and was sort of like, I've never really got a chance, it's kind of a bit messed up. Yeah, you feel sorry for him because he's so young in the industry, Richard. Like, in this scenario, it's like, D-Man, mate, like, you've had a million fucking chances. How many more do you want? Like, how about converting some of these motherfuckers?
It's all right. Next time. No, the reason why it will always be funny to me is you have to remember this is a guy who went from being just another regular community dude like you and me.
Yeah.
Very down to earth, dare I say based. And once he got that Riot job, he just sort of became an insufferable twerp. And just, thought him coming to CS was like a net win for us.
That whole generation, unfortunately, of Riot casters, it really ruined a lot of them, the ego-wise. Like, people don't know. They found a little bit out about my old friend Jack, for example. By the way, spoiler, I even said it in my video about him at Team Liquid as a coach. If people didn't know, I already knew there was something amiss with the guy because I'd heard all the stories about him in green rooms and how some of the ego things he was pulling. But if people don't know, this is one area I think people, especially who are talent, really don't get it. It's like, let's be real. Right, me and Richard don't actually claim that it was me and him who like made the viewership go double for the major. Like, we have so little to do with that. In fact, the thing about esports, which is why on some level people like ESL are right when they hire people who aren't the best to do their events. They're right. Like, the lowest common denominator, average viewer who's watching, they don't know the difference between Harry and fucking Machine. To them, it's the same guy. Like, if I think one's a 9 and the other one's an 8, they just think they're both a 10, or if they like them, or they think they're 0 if they don't like them. So the premise is, TOs are sort of right. Generally, that we don't bring the box office and say, well, the problem is this. I guarantee you right now, guys, almost everyone who appears on the camera really does think that they're a big part of it. Like, they think like, no, they're watching me. It's the way I do it. And so, unfortunately, like, they've all lost the plot. Like, I often wonder about this. Like, if you're someone like Uber from the Overwatch League who goes and does videos, Froscorin who was on LEC, was doing Worlds, MSI, do you never wonder why no viewers seem to follow you to the new place that you do the videos? Do you ever wonder how the video can have like 1,000 views? Like, does the penny never drop at anybody?
You gotta build your own shit. Always build your own shit.
In that scenario, unfortunately, it's not that you weren't good. You were good, but you did it all, like Richard said, on someone else's platform. And unfortunately, that's where the viewers went to in the first place. And it's just not reality. They're not going to come over with you. It's very rare. There's only a few people who can sort of do that, I think, and bring a crowd over,
And just before, look, to also bring back another recurring segment, right, that we used to do back in the day before we talk about Blast. Crazy HLTV threads. It's hard to believe in 2022 this is sort of some existential debate. It's a thread called brain transplant. And it said, I got a question for HLTV. A brain transplant has never been done before on humans, but I've always thought about this question. Who would be the person to live on? The person who the brain belongs to?
I know. This isn't Carl Pilkington level shit. Come on, hit me with it. So option one, the person the brain belongs to, right? Already, listen, I'm going to say very strong contender, but let's see what the other options are, Richard. What other options could there be? So it could either be the person whose brain it is, or what are the next ones?
The person who the brain gets put into.
Now, obviously, that makes no sense at all because they've had their brain taken out. But okay, listen, let's not judge. What's the third? Is there a third option? For God's sake, what's the third one? Come on.
Your own interpretation, perhaps.
Listen, it's it. What's great is you're right. That sounds like someone's placing like one of those thought experiments, isn't it? You know, like, am I really like a butterfly dreaming in my mind? But the problem with that is, I can tell you right now, that's actually an open and shut case. It's whoever's brain it was. Yeah, whoever brain it is. That's it. That's
your brain. Yeah. Oh my God.
It's almost as good, right? You won't believe this. There was basically a very famous Carl Pilkington segment just like that, where basically the premise was he couldn't something mad, like he couldn't understand if you had a clone. Like he was like, well, how would I know which one I am? It's like, well, you're just looking out from the eyes of the one. You're like, you know what I mean? Like the whole thing was just like, what? Holy fuck! How are you conceiving this scenario? Like, I mean, the clues just look around. Like, can you see that guy? You're not him, are you? Like, mate, people are on that level. That's why I always thought Carl Pilkington 10% might just be like a god tier, like fucking.
No, I think he's like an Andy Kaufman.
You know I mean, because it's too good at the end of the day, and he's too good. But like, this is one where it's like there actually are people this stupid out there in the wild, for sure.
Well, for sure. So there you go. Right. Let's get into Blast, a tournament. I'll start just by saying I know there's lots of great moments here, some great games and some great storylines that emerged from it. The production was on point. The talent did a fantastic job. Only problem I have with the event, just to get the negative out the way, didn't really like the format. I know they've done this format before. It shouldn't surprise me. I'm still just best of one averse. That really don't like seeing them. Even if you're playing lots of them sequentially, it doesn't really prove anything about.
So that's satisfying to you to see the unbeatable Na'Vi immediately thrashed out of the gates by MIBR, a team, again, I don't know if any of us could have named all 5 players on. That wasn't satisfying to you to see them on the internet.
I'll be honest, I'll lean into it. It was very satisfying, but is it legitimate? No. It would Na'Vi have won a best of 3? I mean, obviously it's academic. We'll never know. You can't really speculate. Something seemed off about Na'Vi at this event anyway. And I'm not just talking about Boomich's beard, which is one of the fucking most ungodly facial hair arrangements I have ever seen. But yeah, I mean, look, I just thought, the best of ones, it's like, It definitely helps underdog teams because then you always have the puncher's chance of just getting lucky on one map, or you're well prepared on the map that you end up playing. So it can generate some exciting results, but I still think you want to reassess this format and do best of 3s in future because it's just going to give you a more consistent, clearer picture of who the better teams are. Now, that being said, let's start with one big talking point. Complete total annihilation of North America, of course. All of them finishing 10th to 12th and heading to that spring showdown.
The joke is, like, obviously the real question was who will be the best, and then they all just finished last place, didn't they? So it's academic, and that's
No, but this is what I expected. We literally said this when all these lineups were being assembled. We said, like, don't think, by the way, just because, like, for instance, complexity might look not as impressive as the other 2 on paper. They're going to have to put in a ton of work. You've got people coming back from Valorant. You've got people who've been out of the game, just not playing for ages. It's going to be a total shit show, and it's just going to be who actually puts the work in and gets everybody aligned and heading in the right direction first. We'll get complexity out the way. Now, obviously, remember, in an alternate universe, the Copenhagen Flames team, which seems to be tanking a little bit as it is, could have been the representatives. Instead, you've got this team. You have the Floppy, Grim, Junior, Fang, and JT combination. They didn't win a single map. And while they took...
I don't know if you remember this, but JT technically was on high ping. I believe he was in NA at the time.
Yes. And you could see I wasn't going to bag on his personal performance.
I give him a pass for that,
Yeah, totally. So yeah, they did play at a slight disadvantage compared to everyone else here at the tournament. However, for me, you can still see there's a number of issues. So right out the gate, Floppy, legit player. I think he's doing a lot of heavy lifting in this team. Looks great. Hasn't had the lineups that his skills kind of deserve. Everything seems to have gone wrong for him. Grim, looks like he's learned a lot and developed a lot in his time at Team Liquid. Fang, great prospect. I totally see it. Now it's the other two pieces. A lot of people tell me behind the scenes, JT's a great leader, a great tactical guy. I don't know. I don't see any of that on the server. I don't see a high level of personal performance. I think you can do better on the IGL level. And unfortunately, Junior looks like a player just sort of, as soon as you take him out of the ESEA level of play, he just doesn't look to be a competent Tier 1 AWPer, sadly. And a lovely lad, a nice guy. But, fuck that. When's that ever counted on by the numbers? So, complexity, while I think, they're not a million miles from the other NA teams around them, I think this is the one that really disappointed me the most, especially the 2-0 against MIBR, who, remember, that's a new lineup, and I think with a stand-in as well. So, they really had to take a map here to sort of show any promise, and that series was really close. They lost a number of key rounds, and it was sort of predicated on, some individual errors.
Yeah, the problem I have here is, in terms of Junior, obviously that's his whole problem he had on Fury is he made his name farming other NA players, and then when he had to try and go and play international competition, it just fell flat because, as I always tell people, the biggest drop-off ever is essentially the not as good AWPer versus the best AWPers. They just get eaten alive. You're very rarely going to win those. And so already he's the one that still has to prove himself of these players. And then in terms of the other angle this is the thing I think people overlooked with JT, is the Cloud9 that he had that actually looked pretty solid. They looked like he had good tactics and stuff. They were doing loads of executes and come out with interesting stuff. Well, the thing is, they'd had the core of that team for a solid 8 or 9 months. A couple of them had even played together for years.
Yeah.
He's working in this team. He's got his boy Floppy, but aside from that, he's working with essentially a totally different lineup of players. They're trying to make a really skilled lineup now. The downside of doing that when you stack a load of skilled potential star players together is, where are the supportive elements? How does the team structure itself? Essentially, you're not just going to wake up next day and be playing execute Counterstrike. So I'll be interested to see in that sense which way they're going to go, because the problem I have is, to me, that's how JT justifies his position in this team, as if he is the mastermind essentially. If he's not, if they're just going to be a poor man's Team Liquid, you probably have to get him out there and just get someone to frag it there, if you're just going to play a loose style or something. So I'm certainly interested. Look, obviously this is just a one-off. He doesn't get the slight pass because he was on high ping. Yeah. I'm still not going to write it off.
To be honest, that could have made a difference in a 16-14 game for sure. So yeah, they didn't really impress me all that much, but I didn't expect a great deal from them. What I will say is Team Liquid really didn't know
that team, mate. People were hyping that one. I saw a lot of the NA people, by the way, are super in on that lineup. They think it's really good.
Yeah, so it's very hard to judge, because the one thing I'll say is there was the classic Liquid elements of nerves, I think, creeping in a little bit. They couldn't close out some of these games. They beat EG, sure, but that was a 1917 win. And I've got to say, it was pretty much as we thought it might be. Which of Nitro and Shox was gonna improve? It turned out neither of them really. Nitro looked well off the level. I know he had I think one map where he top fragged against I think it might have been the Na'Vi game actually. But Shox certainly didn't look to be all that at all. Didn't look to be of the caliber of player suitable at this level, which is strange because he had a nice run of form when he was at Vitality just before this move occurred. OC, he did have a really bad time against Na'Vi, but in general, I thought he passed the eye test. Naf is Naf, Elise is Elise. the pieces are all there. But I mean, this gamble that they've taken on Nitro so far, it doesn't seem to. I mean, it's one tournament. So, hyperbole, classic.
And he looks like someone who's just come from Valorant, mate. He really does just look like he hasn't got his feet back in the game. And the problem here is he doesn't get a warm up. This is, by the way, if people don't get this, this is why in the UFC,
it's a brutal group as well.
When they famously had Conor McGregor fight Khabib, it's not that I don't think Conor McGregor was a great fighter. It's just I knew 100% he loses that fight because it's like this guy, Khabib, was in form of all this streak of wins, and Conor McGregor had just been fucking around, going and doing exhibition boxing matches and having like exhibition middleweight. Like, what are you doing, bro? So as a result, like in that scenario, you're not just going to only rock up back into the sport again in the case of Nitro, but then just go to Europe and play in it. Fuck off. It's not going to work, mate. You're playing some of the best teams in the world potentially in these tournaments. Like, people have been grinding. So yeah, the problem with Team Liquid is obviously if everything comes together on the lineup like you alluded to, it'll be an interesting team. But there are so many, like, essentially for me, the only pieces that are a guarantee are in the Legion NAF, the ones that stay. That's about it. I can't rely on anything else in this team. I've got to totally see it all work out. I've got to see it all start to function, get it together. So I don't really give a fuck that they're going to go, oh, it was close games. No, it doesn't matter, mate. If anything, the other teams in the group also were there for the taking. Like, on paper, look at their group, right? Vitality, brand new lineup. FaZe Clan added ROPS, but FaZe has always been viable to fucking lose online games, by the way. EG's a team that's a worse version of Liquid as far as I can tell. Like, you were primed to just win this group. And instead, you'd come last place in the tournament. Like, fuck off, mate. So I wasn't very impressed in general by that. I thought it was kind of underwhelming.
Yeah. I mean, look, that's out of all of the NA teams I watched, that's the Liquid was the one I thought, because Shocks won't be that bad. I can't imagine he's going to stay at that level. It's obviously just he's bedding in, new system, learning it. I've got faith Shocks can be better than what he showed here, and I think Nitro will raise his game as well. I think he has to. He'll hit the death match, get back in, get match fit, and then Liquid to me look like, because they've kept NAF especially, but the addition of OC and having Elijah already there, they look like they're a team that will get their shit together eventually and beat some of the bigger European names. Now, what that will equate to in terms of a top 10 ranking, I don't really know at this point. It's too early to say, but they look to me to be the team that would definitely get it together. Now, meanwhile, over at Evil Geniuses, rough debut. They ran up against the Vitality squad. And got 16-3'd right out of the gates. Obviously, we'll talk about Vitality some more in a moment. Then they lost to Liquid and then took on Big, were able to take their map pick in a best of 3. But Big, who have been looking pretty solid, were able to beat them. And it wasn't until the big game where I even saw flashes where I thought this EG team could work and be competent. Now, what's super interesting is, in the big series especially, the question marks in EG theoretically are, what's Rush's role going to be, and how well's he going to do it, and how well's he going to perform in general, and Automatic. He wasn't playing great at the end of his CS career, went to Valorant, hasn't even necessarily been getting a lot of playtime over there, and now he comes back. So what's he going to be like? And against Big, no joke, Automatic was EG's best player. Like, inarguably, unequivocally, top frag in every map for EG. Rush also had a couple of maps where he was like really legit and he played really well overall. Stewie looks like Stewie 2K, no problems there. It was the existing guys, and in particular, the madness of Breezy. I don't understand. I don't know where this guy's gone. Like, I did a meme end of last year from a tournament where I put his picture on the side of a fucking milk carton, because it's like, this motherfucker has been missing, but it's like, that's already like 5 months ago or something, and he was missing for months before that, which is what prompted me to like, what happened to this guy? He's fell off a fucking cliff, mate.
Oh, no, I mean, it's one of the most disappointing fall-offs I've ever seen, because I also thought as soon as EG came online, remember, they used to be one of the best LAN teams in the world, he was the star on LAN, and then he just gradually, it's like every 3 to 6 months, he took another step down, and obviously, like, I'll also add in as well, In the case of Stanislaw, when Stanislaw took that period off right after the player break and he made that twit longer, which he sort of said something, I didn't get enough out of the player break. Now, I will say, I got further information after the fact that was just a very poorly communicated twit longer because Stanislaw isn't known to be the most socially fucking adept individual in the scene, hence his career. Or apparently his joke is, the Stanislaw premise is this: he's not the fastest guy, he can just outrun fucking Daps when the Tiger's coming behind him, can't he? That's his entire career survival plan. But then when Daps is gone, guess what? Yeah, you're fucked at that point in time. So anyway, right, the problem is, as far as I know, the worst and quite serious reasons why Stanislaw took the time off. This is what people don't know. As far as I know, Breezy just took time off. No, like, as in, like, he didn't go like, oh, I have something this year. He just went like, people having time off, I'll have one of them. Even though his team had been doing fuck all, it was all online, there's no travel that's straining. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, if you complain about travel at that point in time, the joke is you're complaining that you don't want to be a professional Counterstrike player from North America. It's just the world of Counterstrike. So I have to say, if you add in the attitude stuff and the fact that he hasn't shown any fire as a player, because there's another thing. If you go downhill, but like you almost fight it, you really put like, oh, fuck, I want to get back. And you even telling people privately, what can I do? Like, I've never got this vibe from him at all. It feels like he just fucking checked out. Well, now you can't check out anymore. For me, it was already a disgrace the way that major was played out by these guys. So I consider Breeze, on paper, he might be the most skilled player in this lineup. I think he should be like the best player if things go well. If he's going to suck, mate, I hope that they all do you like the way you've done other people in this team. It's your time to go. Like, you've had fucking chance after chance after chance. Remember, listen, you were one of the best players on land before it's like you won a major. You weren't winning fucking massive. You won a couple of cups and you made semis of a major. Okay, grats, that's good. That was like 3 years ago now, though. That doesn't even calculate. Like, if we want to talk like that, boys, I can bring Kenny S in here tomorrow. I can bring fucking Guardian in here tomorrow. We can get them going again in teams, but no one's considering that. So some of these NA players have got to learn. Like, it's fucking, you're literally resting on your laurels right now. And actually, I'll look over at teams like Complexity is the best example. Those motherfuckers in that team, whoever gets good in that lineup in 6 months, they're taking your spot if you don't get your shit together in EG right now, because they're all next in queue, and they've also got just enough experience. Like, they'll be ready to actually take the spot, not just be given a spot. They'll just force their way into the lineup. So to me, this EG team particularly, this looks right now like a Stu 2K vanity project. Like, these are all the people I wanted to play with, and those don't last fucking long without results, I'm telling you right now.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy because, you know, look, I'll even say I know Cirques fell off as well, but there were glimpses here, you know, and again, behind the scenes, everyone's saying that, like, Cirque's working, like, you know, double time, triple time, like, non-stop, like, playing, trying to get his form back, trying to find that form that's eluded him because he was an elite level AWPer in the not too distant past. And he certainly isn't that now. But, you know, he had some moments. He had some maps where he looked good. Yeah, he had some whiffs too. He missed some big shots, you know, but that you can see the road back to success. Breezy, I don't understand what's happened to him or where his head is at. You know, I don't know if he's one of these Valorant holdouts and he's waiting for that big fat contract there or something. But he was really disappointing here, and it was a difference maker, in my opinion. You know, first test passed for automatic. Like, I'll credit where credit's due, mate. I thought it was a terrible pickup. But if he can continue the level he showed against Big especially, you know, no qualms with that. He'll actually do some damage in CSGO. He won't be back to his, you know, championship winning levels, probably. I don't think that's an unrealistic expectation, but he's certainly going to be good enough to mix it up in the top 10 in the world in CSGO, which is more than I expected him to do. And Rush, I expect, based on what I've seen here, is going to be exactly the type of supportive player Stewie wants to work with. If Cert gets back on form, it really, all the problems within this team are going to suddenly be pointing at Breezy. So he's going to have to get his shit together, for real. Because, I mean, you know, from what I can tell as well, like EG, you know, from sort of looking at their socials and stuff, like, they're really going in on this. Like, they had their wobble, they had their doubts way back when, and now they really want to get back to having, like, a serious contender, you know, CS team right up there, you know, with the League of Legends kind of, you know, as getting that dual attention as the big teams in their organization. So I don't think they'll tolerate it if, like, you get down to the end of, like, let's say you get to summer and it's still like this and Breezy's still, I think he'll be out. I really do. So yeah, so that was basically the tale of NA. It's one that we've all heard before. Good, but not quite good enough. Let's talk about NIP. Obviously, they came into this without Device. We know that Device has been taking some time off. And they had a lot of maps here and had some very interesting games. So just to give everyone the rundown, they beat Big, lost to G2, beat Big again, lost to G2, but lost in a much more impressive way. 22-19, could have maybe had that one. Then they beat Na'Vi. Then they threw a game against OG, and then they got handled by Na'Vi and lost 2-0. So very back and forth. The big stories coming out of it, Rez kind of looking like he might be getting some form, because remember, he was really poor at the major. Fozy got found out against Na'Vi, but generally did okay. But obviously they are missing Device. But as standings go, not terrible. I mean, no one's really going to replace Device. Doesn't matter how good you play. But yeah, it was pretty shit against Na'Vi. Esatag looks to have bedded in. He had a few good maps now. And Plopsky's just Plopsky. So overall, I thought Nip did okay. But I think they really need to get Device back in this team as soon as possible, if that indeed is going to happen.
The big concern I have is, right, there's no world in which I actually believe they can be a better team without Device. But somehow, in all these games I've seen them play with the Forzy guy instead of Device, they've actually, as an overall team, looked better. Not like, obviously, but like, for example, Plopsky seems to play better when Device isn't in the team. It's why I really wonder about the structure of the team. Obviously, they did change the coaching staff, to be fair, late last year. So there's a bunch of pieces that are moving around. But that's the thing, because logically, right, even when they had Device, and even when Device would post like the big HLTV ratings and stuff, they were still a team that, like, they needed everything to go right to win big games. Like, the joke is, in all these matches they haven't had him, they're kicking. There's so many games they could have won, mate. There's so many times they're in like an overtime game, a 3-map series. Like, it really makes you wonder what has gone wrong with this project. Because on the one hand, like, it's great that they're holding down the fort. Like, they're doing a very admirable job so far in these matches. But it just makes you think, if Device comes back in the lineup, hopefully in the next month or two, and they don't immediately just become really good, like they can't retain what they've done now and add him in, this project's just, there's something fucked about it. There's something that hasn't worked since he's been in.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. I mean, the problem that you've got probably is, I mean, reading between the lines, based on everything that's been said and everything that's been done, I almost feel like, as we've seen with, for example, Nico in the past and stuff like that, he's one of those players who I think he's at the time in his career where he knows on the Nip lineup especially, he is the big name. He is the star. He wants to do things the way he views. And when you have that kind of power dynamic on a team, the star player is always going to have input into the tactics. Now, you can also point out that one of the problems Nip have had consistently is the tactics, and certainly Hampus deserves a lot of criticism for that. T sides, especially, it's not a meme. They were struggling to get rounds on the T side on every map. But when you make an observation like you did, where you're talking about, they actually look a bit more cohesive and all that, it does make you wonder if Device is sort of like, we play one way when Forzy's in the team, but when Device is in, we can't play that way because Device wants to get his touches or do the things he wants to do. And that will create a bit of friction and a bit of uncertainty. I know that he's currently taking some time for his mental health, which, by the way, I don't doubt that, given everything that's happened and how quickly it's all happened. But equally, I mean, all the rumours swirling around about him potentially leaving, I don't think any of this is helping the team. And I think we're at the stage now where if you're going into the first big tournaments of the year, tournaments that are going to dictate whether you're playing an additional tournament before you're in the finals or not, potentially dictating earnings, for 4 other people, like Device needs to make a call soon.
Yes.
You can't. It's not fair. It's not fair on your teammates, even if they are understanding and supportive teammates. And on top of that, we saw this. If this gets to like shades of Olaf in FaZe,
yes,
the FaZe lesson teaches us cut it off quick.
Yes. I'd also even throw in there as well, this is where I really hope that none of this is a tactic, right? I'm not saying
yeah.
that, like, for example, by the way, spoiler, almost any top pro, especially one that's been traveling for years, could actually just say, and it'd be legitimate, like, I have problems with mental health. The joke is, it's a bit like that old joke about when you need the medical weed license in California. Well,
Yeah.
everyone in the world can just say, like, I have problems with my appetite, or I can't sleep, or I've got a bad knee. Everyone has some reason that would have justified it, right? So it's the case, just as when a couple of years ago in 2020, the Astralis players took those breaks and they were simultaneously taking a break for burnout, but also using it as a negotiating tactic and sort of like a piece on the board, as it were. I worry that there's some of that going on here as well. And the reason why I say I hope it isn't the case is actually, as you said, for his teammates. Because the problem is this: if you're Device and you've been in Astralis, I saw from the inside that those players, they weren't banded together, they weren't pals, they weren't us against the management. It really was a prisoner's dilemma. And it was like, right, well, either like me and this guy can go somewhere and we get this deal, or maybe I just get my deal first and then we'll see, you can get your deal later. Like, and it was like, it became very fucking, like, it was very cynical. And I got the vibe at the time, their thing was like, look, we've won all our shit together, so let's all just get our bags sorted and then we'll see what happens after that. You know, if some of us stay together, cool. If we don't, whatever. You know, we've all had our great time. There's the difference. That ain't the same team you're in now, Device. Like, now you're in a team with a bunch of young players, people who hope they can one day have a brilliant career, or people like Rez who maybe thought it was over for him, but now he's got his second lease at life. You don't make those guys wait 3 or 4 months if this really is some sort of like, am I in, am I out, or can I get the right teams to come? Like, don't do that to your teammates, man. It's one thing to think the org, like, look, I get it, the NIP org can go fuck themselves. They seem like they're full of rats and dishonest and all that shit that I'm sure reminds you of Astralis, but don't do it to your teammates, mate, especially not young players. Young players, if you crush those guys and make them jaded like 1 or 2 years in, you could just cripple a guy's whole career at that point in time, you know.
Yeah, and look, you know, Nip, they've stayed pretty stum about it. You know, this is another thing as well. Like, I know I know mental health's a tricky one. It has to be. You have to say it's open ended because, you know, it depends what type of mental problems you've got, what type of treatment you're getting, if any. You know, whether the mental aspect starts manifesting physical symptoms, that's a real thing too. So all of this, you know, you can't give us like a hard date and say I'll be back then. But you also sort of have to manage the expectations, I'd say, a little bit better. And Device is obviously taking a break off social media. Last thing he sort of said was like, "There's just no truth that I want to leave." Meanwhile, it's been reported by multiple journalists now that it is true, and he does want to leave, and he is looking to get back to Astralis. And Nipper sort of like, "Yeah, well, we're supporting our player, and here's Forzy, and we've even replaced Forzy in the academy team long term by signing another player." Yeah, it's like it just doesn't look good. It doesn't look like this story has a positive ending for NIP at least. And when you think about the fanfare and how it was a big blockbuster move and all that, who'd have thought it would just fucking dribble out like a wet fart in a bath? You know, it's kind of like, yeah, this isn't the storyline any of us wanted. So I hope, obviously, I want Device to be well and healthy. But also, I mean, we're at that stage now where the season started. We've got to know, like, I mean, fuck, he could just retire. He doesn't have to keep going.
There's a world where that maybe he's even on the table. Maybe that's what he's thinking about. Does he really want to stay or leave? Because the thing that's weird to me is this, Richard. The reason why it makes no sense he goes back to Astralis is because if essentially you were open A to the idea of leaving Nip, you get involved in all that like fucking off season we just had and all the moves. Yeah. You don't sit it out and then at the end go, oh, see that Astralis team that I see sucks now. I'm not in them. Can I join them again? Like that doesn't feel like the move either. Like how can that really be a satisfying sort of exit plan? You know. So to me, yeah, unfortunately, I guess you have to consider that really. Maybe he is also basically. Maybe he's just doing the Tom Brady one where people thought, he's definitely going to retire. But he still wanted to wait a week to make his mind up or whatever, you know.
So let's talk about this Astralis lineup. Because, you know, Astralis, an organization that is synonymous with excellence in CSGO, had one of the greatest cores of all time. There was a rift where we've seen elements of that great lineup go to Vitality, who looked good here, which we'll talk about in a moment. And other elements stayed. They went out. They made a big song and dance about how they were getting their guys, Blame F and Config, big signings. The Config one, especially, a lot of fuckery and dark arts behind the scenes going on with that. And then there's Lucky. And anyway, I've got to say, not always right. I had this one spot on in my assessment the minute this lineup was put together, and that was that basically blame that Zipnix was just getting the bag with that disgusting 5-year contract. But it's bordering on. I mean, keep in mind this is a public traded company. I don't even know what the laws are around financial fucking malfeasance, but giving him a 5-year contract for massive amounts of money.
Wasn't it technically like a 3-year extension or something?
Oh yeah, a 3-year extension, I should say.
Yeah.
But basically, giving him a contract of that size and that amount, given that he wasn't even playing well at that moment in time.
Some of the shareholders should probably look into that in a year or two if it goes to the shit. Like, why were we giving money to that guy? It looks like a scam, like you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't think they've got any redress for stuff like team management. But I mean, this team is bad. I mean, it is tanking, and let's like I say, let's go over all the elements of why Astralis is bad. And just to give people the results here, they lost to OG. They did beat Na'Vi in a best of one. Whoopee shit. 19-17. They beat MIPR. Also whoopee shit. Lost to OG. Lost 2-0 to Big twice, and Big handled them big time. So, and Searson especially, who had a fucking absolutely amazing tournament. But let's just go over all the problems that this Astralis lineup has, and they're not going to get fixed anytime soon. Washed up, tired, fucking non-committed Zipnix playing.
Doesn't even play clutches half the time now, by the way, boys. He's not even Zipnix anymore.
Do you remember when his form dipped a little bit, but you could say he was good for 4 clutches a map?
Yes.
Where are they now? So what does this player do? Oh, that's right, consistently bottom of the stats, or like every time they play. You've got Lucky, who, guys, like I don't know what to tell you. Like why anybody is.
Why do people defend him? Like, the contrarianism about that player is so weird, because we've always made it very clear we are not hating on him, the player. No. We're hating on the people who keep throwing him in the deep end of the bloody pool. And you guys are just going, no, it's all right. He's almost getting a doggy. He's not totally drowning. He's not. Oh, he looks like he could. Give me a break. He's got a belly full of water. He's going to die any minute if you don't fucking pull him out.
I know, it's really bad. And, I've said, like just multiple times, like, at the end of the day, the brutality about, the way they set him up to fail is insane. He's an academy player who didn't have top-level experience, and he's replacing Device. Oh, and by the way, we're also rebuilding the team entirely.
By the way, think how crazy this is now as well. If you're lucky, they just let Bobsky go for free, mate. You are locked in the Nightmare Simulator. There's no reprieve coming. They're essentially what they've told you, Richard, is even though nobody's offering for him, we're just going to let Bobsky go for no reason, even though we could just keep him and sub him in any moment. Like, the joke is they're committed to this lineup. They're just going to burn this motherfucker out.
So let me tell you as well, statistically, why this critique is valid. Right. So, Glaive was the joint worst player at the event, statistically. It was down there with Carrigan. Zipnix was the second worst player. Right? So Glaive had a 0.79 rating. Zipnix had
won games in this tournament, remember, boys. They won games.
Zipnix had a 0.80 rating. Config had a 0.89 rating. We're going to talk about that in a moment. Lucky had a 0.89 rating. So the only player at all on this roster that went positive was Blame F, 1.13. And all the kids, by the way, go, haha, bait F. At least he's getting his kills. What are the rest of the cunts doing? So you've got literally 4 players on this roster just dead weight. So let's assess that. Here's the thing. Config's a better player than this, right? But here's the problem. He's another one of these legendary players who needs his mental right at the same time. And he's tweeting, like, what were his tweets? There was one, he said, first of all, and it was like, worst ever performance of the tournament by me, feeling really bad about it or something. I'm sorry, I'll be, blah, 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 I'll be back, usual fare. I think there was just another one where he said, disturbing. Just one word. Disturbing. So it's like, I think it was Config that did that. If it wasn't, I apologize. But
it sounds like it could be. It sounds plausible.
So he's psychologically breaking down because there you go. He come out with a trap script, didn't he? And we all said,
banging,
he running out like a greyhound, getting all the kills. Like, what wrist injury, right? And so we're all like, yeah, awesome. All of that's gone. And by the way, tactically, this team looks dog shit. So
I always told people that one angle, which is everyone thought I was doing it just to shit on Glaive because they're all idiots. And what happens, Richard, is people who are the joke goes like this. The people who are Glaive fans hate Carrigan. So if you ever say anything praiseworthy about Carrigan, you're shitting on Glaive, because the joke is they would be shitting on the other person if they were talking about it. So what they used to say was, right, that I was being unfair to Glaive when I said Glaive did it with one core and he swapped out one player. Like, so no one gives a fuck about Western Wolves. Like, if you're all going to tell me Pimp was shit, you can't tell me Western Wolves was good, you idiot. He was one of the best players in the team. So if we're talking about Astralis, realistically, he did it with 6 players. He did it with a rotation of 6 players, right? The difference with Carrigan is I've seen him do it with like 25 players or something. So I always wondered, not that I thought Glaive wouldn't make him, I always wondered what happens if he gets a totally different lineup of players, especially at this point in his career, by the way, when he's done it. Well, the problem is he isn't a miracle worker. Like, yes, I have pieces that are good enough. Like, even Glaive, yes, that's right, you idiots. Even Glaive needs the players. Like, no IGL boosts every player like 50% or something mental.
Well, and let's also talk about the support Glaive's going to get. They've brought in this Ave guy as a replacement for Zonic. Now, I'm saying that Ave guy, obviously great 1.6 player, played on one of the best of all time. Yeah. But real talk, like, from the moment Zonic was coaching, you could see, you know, what he brought to the table, and it was legit and it works, and Glaive said as much. Now that he's not there, he's looking to another coach for some support. This Ave doesn't know what fucking time it is, mate. Let's be real. This, you know,
He didn't earn his spot. That's the worst thing for me, dude. He's got that spot, let's be real, because of his history at 1.6, which, by the way, is irrelevant for right now. And then maybe one of them's friends with him or something. I don't know, because I can't figure it out entirely. Like I said,
it's just a classic Astralis thing.
Oh, it's nepotism, as far as I can tell, right?
It's this classic Astralis thing where if you're sort of vaguely known in Danish Counterstrike, they'll bring you in because that, and they know you'll come because that's the only show in town. Like, you know, you go to Copenhagen, you do see Astralis jerseys like on people just walking around, even if there's no event that week. You know, they have definitely cracked the mainstream in that way. Yes. So everyone wants to be a part of it, but unfortunately, the way I look at some of their hires, it just feels like it's a conveyor belt of just popular figures who've got ties from previous business arrangements and LAN events and stuff like this. You know, like Ave was a great player in 1.6, like legit. But, you know, why couldn't Astralis get? I mean, I know the original plan was to get Hunden.
Not even now, by the way.
Yeah, not even like Ave was the first choice, but it's like they should have dug a bit deeper to try and find someone, you know, that I think was a bit more relevant and a bit more current, because it was gonna be obvious to me that Glaive was gonna need some help. Meanwhile, as I said, let's just compare and contrast, and like I said, we'll talk about them more in a moment. But the ones that left and went to Vitality, how are they doing? And all I'm going to say is, sure, they've got a ZWoo, and maybe Astralis doesn't have that, but they're also doing it across language barriers. You know, there's a lot of... That was the team that should have been the disaster. This should have been business as usual. This should be a continuation. You know, you're all in on Lucky. We're not. We want him to go back to the academy and develop his skills a bit more. I think the bread's not fully baked yet. You know what I mean? But they want to put him in, and they're all in on him, and they've signed him to a long-term contract, apparently. There's no, you know, so this pie in the sky move about Device going back, I don't even know what that would mean. All it would mean probably is, look, he just ends up like fucking Bubsky, which is another part to this. There's some weird fuckery gone on there as well. There has to be. I can't believe, right, that they're going. Did you see that thing they put out? Hashtag free Bubsky, and they did like a 50-second video, right? Like I say, forget Daps. Bubsky is the new king of the cuckolds.
He's the new Reek.
Yeah, he is. 100%, right? Because, you know, it's even so bad in the RMR rules, which we'll talk about if we've got time, they've even added a Bubsky rule. So you can't get fucked like Bubsky. He's just synonymous with being fucked. You know what I mean? It's like the Ray Parler ruling. It's fucking mental. So, you know...
It's also a shame, if people don't know, on the day that we're recording this was actually the day when he was supposed to be on HLTV confirmed. Yeah. He dropped out last minute, and I saw my boy Maui Snake was like replacing him on the show instead. By the way, at least Maui Snake gets a fucking gig from that. But what's mad about that is, I can tell you right now, if they end up doing that episode, it'll be the most fucking boring episode ever, because here's the other thing, right? Even though you're all so dumb, you think, wow, he's not in a Strauss house, he's going to give us all the real shit. No. You're so deluded. All you need to know is this. When Bobsky announced he was going on that show, I just replied to him on Twitter, Rich, and I just said, was there anything in your contract that ever said you can't essentially like disparage Astralis? He didn't reply that one, bizarrely.
Yeah.
It's weird that. Yeah. Someone I actually have talked to a number of times, back and forth, private information, back to... Just can't reply to that publicly, even though the implication is clear. The joke with that question is, I've done it on purpose, guys. I've checkmated him. If he answers it, he's fucked. And if he doesn't answer it, he's fucked, isn't he? But it's just not as bad if he doesn't answer it, it's fucked.
Yeah, and so, right? So you're telling me, by the way, this org that's publicly saying, free Bubsky, we want free. And by the way, you can do that anytime. They made a big song and dance about how they let him out of his contract early with that free Bubsky announcement. Didn't let him out early enough to have negotiations with any of these teams that were getting put together, though, did you cunts? Right? If you wanted to let him out early, you should have done it 2-3 months ago. He was never coming back into this lineup. You, for whatever reason, inexplicably, you made that decision. You doubled down on it to the point where you're putting Lucky on rifles and Glaive on the AWP, which is just one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen a professional team do. Right? Then, right, he's what? He's going on TV2.dk fucking as an analyst. Why? There's something wrong there. He should be on a team.
The joke is he skipped the whole professional career and just went to the end of the pimp career arc.
Yeah, mate, it is absolutely mental. So I'm gonna just say this: the way Astralis is being run, I've read this one like a book, right? Config, especially, he thought this was going to be the dream move. Work with Glaive, get the trophies. He was in on this fucking months before there were even rumors circulating. Say Nicola Naum and his fucking Nazgul were all around him. Fucking, let's get him in the team.
And he had that thing in the back of his head where it's like, I missed my chance with Astralis before. Like, this is I can sort of make good on that. Like, no, he's fucking fucked himself.
Work with Glaive. Yeah, but now it's starting to realise that, first of all, the Glaive you're playing with ain't the Glaive from back then. Got a kid now, come back off paternity leave. But also, there's no coach to help you out, neither. No legendary coach behind you. No Zonic there, right? He's over doing his thing. Okay, well, don't worry. You've got the clutch minister. Oh, no, I fucking haven't. I've got some fucking withered Mekon version of him, right, who can't actually play anymore, right? Oh, well, at least I'm here with Blame F. Yeah, Blame F. How long do you think he's going to fucking put up with it? Former IGL himself, by the way, having to put up with this, right? And then, well, Lucky, no, mate, Config, it's all on you now. And now you're going to realise the grim reality. If you don't get your shit together, this team is going to flop. Enjoy that pressure. You've done it to yourself. You're going to have to either rise to the occasion or realise it was a bad decision. But this Astralis team is going nowhere. I think they're going to struggle to stay top 10.
Oh, they're garbage, mate. They're actually a genuinely bad team. And the worst thing about it is I can tell you, I know how stupid fans think. A stupid fan will never blame Zipnix and Glaive for what's happening in this team. It will all be Config's and Blame F's fault. So Blame F might survive because he's got the numbers. But, mate, Config is going to get the worst of all of this. And then on top of that, it'll be Lucky he'll get the spillover.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's gonna be rough for Lucky because, as I said, the future for him, unfortunately, is just back to he's done nothing to ever justify getting a chance on the top. So again, think of this. This is what was happening in Sweden. They would pull out these players that had potential, and they were doing good on a Lemon Dogs roster or a Red Reserve or a level like that, and then Fnatic or Nip, mostly Fnatic, would just say, "Oh yeah, they're ready." They pull up. Put them there alongside all these veteran legends that were struggling. And then when they didn't come up to the level expected immediately or didn't carry the team, they were cut within 3 months. And just fuck off back to obscurity you go. And everyone goes, yeah, they're not ready for tier 1. Ignoring the fact that the players that were at tier 1 were fucking washed up and not playing well. Yes. So now Astralis, they love the Swedish model so much. There's a joke there. I'm not doing it.
There's an obvious one there.
Yeah. New beef, hashtag new rich, right? So they love the Swedish model so much they're even fucking wrecking academy players in the same way. So fuck that. I think this Astralis team's got real problems. That's where I'm at on it. Let's talk about G2.
Do it.
There were questions about G2. A lot of moving parts. Lots of changes. Congratulations to Hunter as well. He just became a father, tweeted there. And we were wondering how this was going to go down. Well, I mean, past, I would say almost all of their tests were, not with flying colours, but had some legit best of one results, what to be expected, didn't fall against MIBR. The Vitality game, they did lose it, but that really doesn't tell the full story. They lost on Inferno. That's Vitality's pick. Vitality are legit as fuck on that map right now. You absolutely don't want to play them on that. But they battered them on Mirage, which, as we know, is a bit of a whole map for G2. And then Dust 2, sort of a free-for-all, 16-12, and principally, you know, a couple of the players went missing. There were a couple of, like, throwy rounds. But all things considered, I think with a new IGL, a young player that's coming in, and obviously question marks about, you know, will Nico maintain his form? Will Jax maintain his form? What's going on? And the fact that, you know, Hunter obviously has just become a father while that was going on, so he had that in the back of his mind. I'm going to give G2 a lot of credit. What I will say as well is, Munazi, well, you know, he's come out looking every bit the prospect you would want him to. He had some really good individual moments. He's showing a very high level of individual skill. And obviously, it's too early to make this comparison in his career, but very reminiscent of a Kenny S style, exciting, going for the flicks, and they're coming off at the moment. So, yeah, I mean, I'm excited by the prospect of G2. I know they finished in the middle of the pack here. Could have maybe gone deeper, but I think they're going to get better as the year goes on.
I mean, they look like one of the teams that's hit the ground running immediately. I mean, everything about the lineup works. As you said, the biggest question mark was Monacy, because obviously he's now playing at tier 1. To be fair, it's not on LAN, so he hasn't faced the biggest challenge. But so, looked great in his first outing. Looks like he fits the team. As you said, will it affect Nico? Has it affect him at all? What's brilliant is the team will have no role overlap. It's the reason why, when I told people there really was a world where Carlos would have bought Ziwu, they would have just put Ziwu and Nico together, and I guarantee they would have fragged the fuck out. So the best thing is, at the moment, almost every part of the team's looking at least promising. And obviously, you don't judge Alexi B on the first, like, 10 maps of players. So to me, this team only gets better and better. Like, I think this one looks like of all the big off-season ones, this was the one, to me, I felt the most certain makes it, you know.
Yeah, and Nico as well, statistically the best player at the tournament. Yeah, just, you know, playing. When you consider, actually, I mean, this was a strange one, because we're going to talk about Na'Vi next. But just to sort of do the comparison, obviously everyone was talking about that top 3 on HLTV at the end of the year, whether or not Nico should have been number 2 behind Simple, or whether whether because Ziwu was number 2, wasn't he? And so a lot of people were sort of having that discussion, and whether it was recency bias if you were in the Nico camp, or whether the lands that Nico performed that should have been more heavily weighted than the online portion that Ziwu fragged out in. So, you know, lots of debates, lots of discussion. You're always going to have that kind of discussion with the top 10 list. Spoiler, outside of Simple being number 1, it's sort of all up for debate, really. I agree. But Nico was top, Ziwu was second, and Simple, I feel like this is the first time I'm saying this about it, he was all the way down in 5th. And you know,
even so, though, I will just again say it's Simple, all right. Is he almost dead or something? He's only the 5th best player in the entire tournament when his team's lost loads of games. Like, again, mate.
Yeah.
Guy, he doesn't live a normal human being's existence, does he? Like, I know, he just descended. Like, the joke is now he's not flying, he's just hovering slightly off the ground, and he like, give me a break.
Well, you know, I'll just say, obviously, you know, I don't think it's going to continue, but the one thing that would make this year unbelievably exciting would be if this Na'Vi team sort of capitulated in some way.
Sure.
And I'll say, I won't name names, but I was talking to some of the talent that will work in the broadcast, and I was saying, holy shit, because on day 1, Simple looked fucking poor. You know, he didn't just, he was really struggling to get a kill in the opening map of the tournament. And I was saying he looks like someone, and even they were saying, yeah, I mean, we're watching it in disbelief. It doesn't even look like it's the same player. So I don't know if maybe they've had a holiday and they've come back a bit slow. You know how it is. You go on holiday, you gain 10 pounds.
When you win every tournament.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you go on holiday, you gain 10 pounds. You don't practice, you get a bit sluggish, you know, whatever. But the one thing that would make this year unbelievably exciting and unpredictable would be if there was a Na'Vi drop-off. So with that said, let's talk about Na'Vi.
Sure.
4th to 6th, they are going to the final. Basically won their the last chance match, it was called, but it was far from fucking plain sailing to even be there. And incredibly, people were like wondering, like, holy shit, Na'Vi could be in the fucking last chance qualifier if it keeps up like this. Lost in a best of one, the MIPR game, as I said. Simple really struggled. Just overall, I mean, he was like the 4th highest fragger on the team, and how often do you say that? So you had that. They lost to Astralis in the best of one, as we talked about. They were able to beat Liquid. It was relatively comprehensive, but not dominant. And then the big surprise is obviously they lost to NIP, including, an overpass loss, which strange. Overpass rapidly emerging, as a very solid map for NIP. And then they had obviously replay against NIP, and they nearly, on overpass again, which was NIP's pick, they nearly threw that. They had a very solid lead. I can't remember what it was at one point. But, they were 9-6 at the half, I remember that. But, they in the end, it finished 16-14, and Na'Vi looked to be wilting a bit under the pressure, and Simple had to go sort of back to godlike levels to get them over the line in that series. So I don't know, man. I mean, maybe this was just like a mortal moment. Like, they just sort of were like, look, let's enjoy the holiday. But as we've seen before, we're like Team Liquid. Sometimes a player break will just destroy your team, and you will never come back. So I'm not saying that's going to happen in RV, but they looked like an ordinary team with a star player here.
It's the reason why you never take a break artificially in the circuit, because when you're on a heater and you're winning everything, you just keep the fucking pedal down and you just try and win everything you can before it ends. Because every single time you take a break, like this kid's a break for a holiday, people don't know as well that this is a detail a lot of actual Westerners don't know, Richard, which is basically because Eastern Europe had its own version of Christianity that isn't Catholicism, it's called Orthodox Christianity. They actually have their Christmas a week after we do. Like theirs is on like the 7th of January or something. So in theory, a bit like the Chinese have their New Year way later, their holiday actually goes much longer. So I can imagine they probably came back, coupled with winning everything and the major. I'm pretty sure the org must have just told them, like, turn up like 5 days before this or something, or, you don't have to come until you absolutely have to. And obviously it's online as well. I'm sure, sadly, I imagine they also probably said, look at your group, it's going to be piss easy, you'll cruise. And even if you don't, boys, look at the format, you get a million chances. And by the way, they did, and spoiler, they made it through anyway. They did at the end what you need to do. But I would just say this, like, not only does it look like a team that really did just disconnect completely from the PCs and then go and have a whole time off and everyone's come back in a weird form, but also another factor, people are forgetting we're on the internet again. And guess what? That amazing electronic LAN buff goes away when you're on the internet. He's just an ordinary player when you come online, mate. So I already thought people were overblowing because it was all LAN. Like, will anyone ever beat Na'Vi? It's like, mate, of course they will when we go on the internet. Like, look, I would never have said MIBR would, of course, but like teams will beat them. So I wouldn't put too much stock in this first one to me. Like, I don't, like, I'll say the amount of teams they lost to was a little bit concerning, but I would expect by the next tournament or two, they're going to be right back to good form again.
And then
unbeatable though.
The real talking point, and I know Maui Snake's been particularly smug about this because when we did, it was when me and you did an episode of Snake and Banter with him. He was saying that he felt Big was gonna like be one of the breakout teams in a top 5 team this year, and I was like, I wasn't really vibing with that. He thinks the addition of Faven is gonna, put them over the top.
I will say he has that youthful folly, which you can only have if you're young. And as an analyst, a lot of people don't know this. Just being an analyst isn't what you know about the game. It's also like you have to learn, like, what's my style? Like, do I try and take the gambles? Do I play conservative? Yeah. I've noticed in his career, he has done that thing that a lot of them do, which is once you get like really good in tier 2, they don't just say you should get a chance in tier 1. To them, it's almost guaranteed that you just transition to tier 1, you keep going, you just go to the heavens. Yeah. Because the rare time it happens, like a Yekindar, you get to look like a genius, don't you? Well, spoiler, I've won a lot more fucking predictions than I've lost betting against young pops to become the new gods of the game. I've won fucking, if you might all remember the 10 times I was wrong, you don't remember the fucking 400 times I was was right. And essentially the joke is like, it's like the stock market. I just short those motherfuckers the whole way. And then all of a sudden, you all think Mertz sucks now. You don't remember when I told you he sucked when he was having the odd good game and everyone told me, give him a chance, Thorin. You guys wouldn't have him join your fucking favourite team now, you rats. So yeah, the problem is, right, I assume he just saw like the Farven one. Obviously he seems like a top prospect. He has to be in the team. But yeah, I'd imagine some of that, like he even said on Twitter, some of it was conjecture for sure. He's not like guaranteeing they're going to be, but he's certainly up on them as a team for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and look, I don't know where I'm at with Big still, because like the thing I've maintained about Big is that for them to achieve what he's talking about, what Maui's talking about with the top 5, they need Searson has to go thermonuclear, which he did at this event, right? But they need that.
That's checkmark 1. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And like Tabson, legit, gonna do his thing. But like, if you go and look at like, what Searson did this tournament, mate, it's pure evil. He had one bad map against FaZe. The rest of the time, mate, he's playing on he had ratings where it was like he had a 2.3, 2.2 against Astralis, mate. He went 32-7. Fucking absolutely insane. So they've had not even a great performance. They've had a good performance. They've punched a bit above their weight here. But look at what Searson had to do to get them to that. And then when you start looking at like, I've still got mad question marks over the likes of like Keto, and Tizian. I don't trust them to do their thing. So yeah, Farben, he's done all right on his first run out. Got to be said as well, like didn't statistically outperform Tabson, but did his job fine. But yeah, I don't know. I think you can't expect this level of performance from Searson tournament in, tournament out. He's shown he's not that consistent.
Oh, no, for me, he's a fairly streaky player. But no, the thing is, I see the seeds of why people have positive qualities about Big. My problem goes like this. I don't even think the ball's in their court on this one. Look how many other amazing rosters all got changed in the last 3 months. Like, Big could do everything right, and they might be like the 9th best team, because that might be where Counterstrike's at now. So I don't blame them, but like, I'm obviously not as like, I don't personally see this world where they're going to crack the top 5. Like, I don't know what player they imagine is coming through the door. That's my question,
Yeah. So another surprise, for me at least, was OG. Obviously, this was Nexa's kind of first run out with his new team after the swap deal that took Alexi B to G2. And got to be said, I mean, they've aced it. Now, the format.
Shall I do it? Shall I do the Thorin move? Here's how they've aced it, Richard.
Yeah, I know.
Well, they played Astralis.
Yeah.
So it doesn't even count. They then played MIBR. Wait a minute, how are you playing MIBR up wins? Because MIBR fluke that does 2 games against Navi. So, okay, you get to beat MIBR. Then they play Astralis in the final of the group. Astralis in the final of the group. Another miracle just handed to you. It's all right. It's all right. There's another part of the format, guys. Just wait. They then played against NIP without divide. What? So they... Yeah. Who would they beaten? They're beating Astralis, MIBR, and NIP without divide. Listen... Yeah. At the end of the day, some of those teams have scored big results. They've beaten Navi. Like, in fact, all those teams beaten Navi, I will say. Listen, in MMA math, yeah, it's great. But, like, Nexa must have brought some fucking luck over with him from G2. This is the most... Oh, yeah. Like, it's like they just wanted him into the finals. It's crazy, this path.
Yeah, I mean, look, I watched watched all of the games. So, it was, like, hard to be massively impressed, if they had like some really good moments. It was the NIP one where I was kind of like a bit side-eyed on it because they sort of bottled their pick, Ancient, and then they managed to win on overtime on Mirage. Didn't look like amazing, sort of at any point. And remember, this NIP hasn't really impressed me much and doesn't have device. So yeah, it's a very ordinary run, but you only beat what's in front of you, and OG have done it. And I gotta say as well, there were certain players that definitely performed above my expectations. They've been a little bit quiet in the previous iteration of OG, but when it came time to bang, Flames and Mantu looked much improved to where they've been form wise. Valda's the one that looks to have got a bit lost in the mix. I'm worried for him because
here's the problem, mate. I've just looked this up now. This screams mouse spots at Flashpoint 3. Here's why. This entire team was the highest rating team in the whole tournament at 1.22. And if you go and look, every player is above like a 1.18 or something. Every single player in the lineup, right? That doesn't happen. That's why I'm saying it's like mouse spots at Flashpoint 3. Like that simply does not happen. That's like beyond Na'Vi at the Major, by the way. Like that's like outrageous. So there's no way that holds. Part of it obviously is you're not playing this great opposition. You caught them all with the pants down, blah blah blah. But like some of that's going to immediately regress back to the mean. I'm like off the top of my head, I think a couple of them stay good numbers. The rest of them go to normal as you expect. They just that's the ultimate example of a honeymoon tournament. Come on.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'll also add as well, I'm saying Valda got lost in the mix. I mean, he absolutely destroyed Astralis, mind. So, but I mean, in general, you know, the matches were so, like you say, so in their favour to begin with, and the format was so in their favour to begin with. It is hard. Like, I'm not excited about the lineup or anything. I'm just saying, you know, fair enough. Yeah. You've gone beyond expectations there with the caveat.
Fair play to Nexa. I said when he came in, you're gonna have to frag out, but yes, so fair play to him.
Yeah. Then we'll talk about FaZe. One of the sort of big question marks about what the top five's going to look like is, of course, you know, are FaZe going to be able to break into it now that they've brought in Rops to sort of complete the lineup? Well, listen, they played legit teams here, and you know, they've done very, very well. I mean, again, a lot of best of ones, but they beat Liquid twice. They had an OT loss against Vitality. They then got a revenge win over Vitality, and of course they beat Big, who we've just been talking about how legit they were. And the good news is, guys, we can now safely say Rops kind of was phoning it in a bit at the end of the mouse sports era. He clearly was sick as fuck, because Rops looked absolutely legit and looks to have filled that void. And by the way, all those people who said, no, I think they can still win with Olaf, I hope you realise how fucking foolish you were the entire fucking time. So, yeah, actually excited about FaZe. Carrigan statistically didn't do well, but he doesn't need to in this team. And also, I thought Rain sort of answered a lot of his critics at this tournament a bit as well. So yeah, I've got a good feeling about this FaZe. I think they're going to be a legit team moving forward. Rops had some great maps, great performances. Brokey was really good this tournament too.
Yeah, the key thing for me with this team is, obviously it's a must that Rops has to be one of the best players in the world, but to me, that they almost had an unfair advantage on that one because he's already played with Carrigan. Like, it's not like I'm having to speculate how would they work together. Like, no, I know, I've seen them play together. They seem like they're totally on the same page, so they've already nailed that part. You still got to maybe work some of the other players in, get the style going. Even so, the old FaZe was infamous for losing all the bloody close games. This team wins them. So, to me, everything's looking up. This is a team where they only changed one player, but it's tracking to be exactly what it should be. Like, I expect they will be the top 5 team soon enough.
Yeah, you know, I'm hoping, because that to me is where it'll get interesting. Like, you know, you've got a lot of people jockeying for position, and we're expecting, you know, Na'Vi, Gambit, G2, and obviously Vitality to be up there, right? And then it's like, well, who else? Who's gonna break through and sort of be that fifth, you know, that gatekeeper, if you like? Well, FaZe are primed to be just that, I think. And
if you want to see Na'Vi get cracked on LAN, you want to have the great in-game leaders doing it. You want to have people like Carrigan and Alexi, but you want to have these names, have the teams to do it finally. Like Apex, maybe you can go in this category now. Like, if these people have the tools, like they look like they do in these lineups, like, mate, it's game on when Boom, which goes to LAN. Like, we'll find out if he is a great in-game leader.
Well, yeah, we will. And to wrap up the talk about Blast, let's talk about Vitality, of course. I've saved them till the end. This was the team where it was like, you know, we've said repeatedly, so much money, so much investment, so much talent, so many big decisions made around this team. It's the one that has to succeed right out the gate. It's the one everyone's expecting. And, you know, here it is. First hurdle cleared in fine form. In fact, you know, they served up some, you know, fantastic moments. Really enjoyed some of their run-ins with G2. But, you know, battered EG were able to eke out a win over FaZe toward MIBR. And again, it was pretty, you know, embarrassing, the gulf in class in those games. I've said Inferno, they're looking just, you know, unbeatable on that map. And yeah, I mean, look, I didn't know what to expect. I thought there's a lot of potential for this to go wrong. You got the language barrier going on. You've got, new players, new coaching ethos. But yeah, I mean, seriously, Ziwu looked to be happy with everything. He was fragging and playing really well. And incredibly, Dupree really rolled back the ears and looked really, really good. And that bodes very well for the future of the project. So, yeah, I think Vitality can feel pretty good about this. There weren't a lot of question marks for me. Apex as well, I got to give a shout out to him. His entry fragging was back to being on point. And the team looked happy. They were all very together. No weird frictions or tensions. No Apex, being over emotional. And yeah, they did what I think they had to do. I think they had to finish, in that 1-3 spot here.
Like, I also agree. This was the team just because of the drastic, players, played together, different cultures, even a different language they're now communicating. There was a world where this could have been the slow starter of all the big roster moves in the offseason. But like you say, it looked good out the gate. Crucially for me, they had the firepower, which is the main concern I had, obviously, because Ziwu's going to be good. But the question is, are all the Astralis players just washed? So to me, firepower looks good. They've even, as you say, got a couple of maps they actually look pretty tasty on already. I expect this team to just keep tracking tournament by tournament and going up the hill. This is one where I'm actually surprised how many people thought this team could totally flop. I just thought it's a question of will it initially have problems getting together? I think the player quality in this lineup for me, it's like I say, I think this lineup already can be a contender. But even if they aren't, as long as enough of the pieces get on the same page, you make that one roster move and then you're fucking laughing in 6 months as well.
Yeah. And look, that's for me, looking at the top 10, as it stands.
And really nice now when it compared to what that LAN season was like, mate.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Vitality are ranked 3rd overall. We didn't get to see Gambit here. So we don't know what they're going to be up to. G2, talked about them. They're looking good. We didn't get to see Virtus Pro here. Na'Vi looking mortal. I expect NIP and Astralis, depending on what happens with device and what,
Astralis is going down for
Astralis is going down as much as the share price. FaZe, on the other hand, are coming up. And then, what starts getting interesting is, are OG going to maintain it? Are Big going to maintain it? We've got other teams in there like Entropic. So all told, I think there's going to be, we didn't even see or mention Heroic. So, yeah, there's a lot of...
Be the best top 10 in years.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. And like I say, a lot of movement will happen, I think. You're not going to end up with that static top 10 where you go onto HLTV and it's just the same. The rankings are going to move around quite a lot because these teams are all going to be capable of beating each other. So, yeah, very exciting time. Blast delivered so much that, gives me a lot of hope to look forward to. And, of course, we've got Katowice just round the corner, which is going to be great. A couple of bits of news to talk about, and then we'll get into viewer questions. Obviously, we've had that official announcement. The rulebook's been released for the Major. And there's a few little talking points worth bringing up. The first is I'll pick your brains about this Bubsky ruling. And what that means essentially is that if you play at an RMR prior to the Major, you can't drop the player. You can register another sixth or another sub or any of that stuff, but you can't change the lineup. You have to take the lineup from the last RMR, and they were calling that the Bubsky ruling, although it may as well be called the Sanji ruling. I think he was the most egregious example. So I wanted to pick your brains about this. Do you feel that's a bit of overreach from Valve and you should be able to qualify with one team and take, whatever team you want to the Major, or do you think this keeps it within the spirit of how it should be?
The problem I have with this topic is, in my opinion, here's the thing. If I think from the player perspective, it does feel unfair that you qualified, but you will not be playing in the tournament. Something about that does feel wrong. which doesn't mean I necessarily know what the answer is. But I will say I've noticed the trend over the years with the majors was most players, most pros hated those roster rules and hated the idea you couldn't make a change. And they would just argue something like, well, what if I could make like the best move ever right after the armor? So my problem is I sort of feel like I'm more on the side of this ruling. And I especially do think like the Bobsky one's the best example. I thought they did him really dirty. So a part of me feels like I don't dislike it. I think it's probably fine as a rule, but I want to wait and see if there's some like angle I haven't thought of as to why it's fucked. By the way, after this, we should probably also talk about the major. We didn't reference that.
Oh, do we not?
No, we didn't talk about the fact that the major was announced.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, yeah, fuck it. We'll start there then. Yeah, they've announced the major.
We did absolutely shell the shit out of like 4 episodes ago, something like.
Yeah, fuck. I guess it's been that long. I guess yeah. So they have announced the major. It's going to be in Antwerp. You know, it's PGL, which I'll say to you, surprised the shit out of me that they got another chance. I can only think based on
cynical reason, right? Viewership. It's got
well, no. I wonder actually if when they got the first one last year, I wonder if Valve had agreed to do 2.
Right. You think it was like a deal in advance, okay?
There was too many hints while we were there, like, oh, you know, we'll be doing this again soon, so don't, you know, go crazy.
Well, the thing of sort of like a wait. They even said at the end of the major, if you remember, at the end of the major, they did a screen that was like in 2022, but they haven't announced any tournaments, had they? So you don't something suspicious. I agree. Yeah.
That's what I think. And you know, put it this way, I think that's the only way they can even justify having it again. Like, listen, whether or not me and the guys at PGL rebuild our bridges, and like, listen, that's open. It's not like it was just a shit tournament to work at. That's all, right? You know, and I was disappointed that we didn't stick the landing with the production side of things until like the penultimate day, because I think the fans deserve better, and I think the game deserves better. But that's fine. I mean, that to me shouldn't be disqualifying for a relationship or a friendship. We all want the same thing. So obviously that door's open. It's not like anything egregious or crazy or unethical. But I'll stand by everything I said in the criticisms after the event. They shouldn't be anywhere near another major. Not until they can show us that they can ace a tournament again. So I like to say the only thing I can think of is that they agreed to 2. Because how could you possibly put a pitch together to Valve?
I know.
After that was your pitch. The last major you did.
Agreed.
And so, you know, now it could also be that it wasn't agreed, and Valve are Valve, and they just don't care. You know, I'm open to that possibility as well, because I mean, seriously, PGL, I thought as well. I thought TI looked bad. You know, I was watching TI at home, especially the opening days. You know, it looked cheap. There was fucked up, broken tables and stuff in shot, bad lighting. It's like, this is a fucking $40 million tournament, mate. You've got to get your shit together. And so then, obviously, they followed that up with the fucking major. I would have thought Valve would be completely out on PGL, but I mean, they're going to be doing daughter events and everything. Obviously, there's a bit of a complexity there, because my understanding is PGL has a partnership with Perfect World, so they've got the Chinese hookup, and it makes things easier in terms of working with the Asian teams. So I don't know, mate. But for me, I'm disappointed they got it over. I don't know who pitched. You know, I don't think Blast did.
Can't be many people in the ring, can there?
Yeah. And obviously ESL have got the second one of the year, so they say, and it's going to be in Rio, so they say at the moment. Watch this space, who knows? But I mean, I'm just sad. I think there's a couple of exciting potential. You know, Blast is one, WePlay is another, and WePlay have shown they can do good broadcasts, at least over in Dota, because they did that Annie major that they had, and that was really good. So yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know why. Maybe it is just dead man shoes, essentially.
I mean, and like I say, they did at the end of the day break the prize, the fucking viewership record, blah 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 blah. Like at the end of the day, that does matter to people. Like, I've seen this with players. A player can play bad, but if he does a one right move at the right time, it just burns into the brain of all his teammates, and they'll just forever return to that. And they're like, "Oh, but there was that one time," and they just can't. They can't let go of it. My problem is this: I'm like you. It's not that I didn't. It's never that I hated PGL. I certainly disliked the way they behaved towards us, and I disliked the fuck out of the way they handled that tournament. If there's one thing anyone who ever works for me should know is this: like, I don't give a flying fuck. If you are shit at your job, I'm going to let you know, and I'm going to let everyone else know as well. Because that's just unacceptable. There's one thing. Here's the thing. You can make honest mistakes. But here's what happens when you make a mistake. You own it and you apologize. When people don't own it, and even worse, when they don't apologize. Because the worst thing about apologies is this, Richard. Everyone in the world's a fucking liar. So you're a liar and you won't even apologise. When you won't apologise to me as a liar, that says you're going out of your way that you'll never give me even like you won't even give me a fake apology. So I'll say this, right? If people don't know, I in theory have squashed my beef with PGL because essentially the top people at PGL did reach out to me and they did basically apologise for what happened at the last major. The problem is this. It's not my first fucking rodeo. It's 2022. You can't do that right before you then tell me, oh, by the way, and we've got the next major. And obviously the implication is, do you want to work it? It's like, how you haven't even fucking, that's not even a credible story, is it? It just looks like you thought, shit, well, I won't need this guy, so fuck him. All right, we're doing the next one. Oh, you know what? I've had a change of heart. Maybe I fucked up. By the way, are you available next week? What are you doing there, mate? Like, you haven't even given yourself, like, think about what a bad movie script that would be. You just made your intentions obvious. So look, I do appreciate apologies all the same. I certainly appreciate if I feel like people might have taken on board what happened. That's all great. And by the way, spoiler, as I'm sort of implying here, me and Richard could probably work this event if we wanted, you know.
Well, I will be.
Wait and see on that one.
No, I've told them it. I've told them.
You've said publicly. Fair enough then. Put it this way, spoiler, I probably
and I've said privately, and I've told them.
All right.
Hire these people. So
that's all good. All I'm saying is, though, I'm saying for dickhead fans who are going to go, you're just mad because you're not getting hired. I could work this event tomorrow if I wanted to, fucking morons. You'll never know anything about this industry. That's why you people who've been telling me since 2014 I can't get any gigs anymore. I'm still working the fucking major in 2021, you imbeciles, because you know nothing about this industry. The joke is, at this point in time, me and Richard might be the only people ever to turn down majors and to turn down hundreds of thousands of dollars from enormous investors. Nobody does that in esports. We've done it, but the problem is you never get any credit for that anyway. So whatever, that's by the by. My problem is, again, on the top of the PGL, and I'd say this even if I was going to work with them, I agree. Like, if that was the audition, the last major, it's not even just like, oh, not feeling it. No, definitely not. The answer would be definitely not. They should not get one. In fact, I even think after that, they need to win their way back into the good graces of the community. They need to go run a Counterstrike tournament differently. You can do whatever level you want, but show that it's all slick, it's clean, it's professional, none of those problems. Then you can come back to the table and pitch. But the real issue, if we circle it all the way back, like you said at the end there, is this is a fucking shit show. It's a poison chalice to do the major. Nobody wants it. All you do when you do it is you just blow your own money in the hopes that other game devs will go, you ran the major for CSGO. Well, I was looking for someone to run my world championship in this brand new game. That's it. That can't be the fucking metric valve by which we have the world championship hosted, mate. Even if you can go, but I didn't operate it, you're responsible. You own those glorious rights that make you like the fucking, it's like fucking royal blood, isn't it? Like the premise we have here is we can't debate with you because you own the game. So at the end of the day, just like PGL themselves, I was annoyed that they didn't themselves own it and take responsibility. Valve has to take responsibility for how these majors go. At the end of the day, you signed the fucking bottom line. You were the ones who allowed those people to do that stuff. So it does reflect badly on you if there's all these problems. So by the way, I'll give this a chance. Of course, I want it to be a great major. I don't think the location's a very good pick, but God forbid there are problems with this major. And I'll also echo some of the things you sort of implied at the end, I saw you did on Twitter, which is this is the perfect chance also to make good on all the stuff with the hirings from the last one. Because the last one had a theme, but now you don't have to have that theme. Now we've had our major, we've broken the fucking dam, as it were. Now we can have business as usual, hire all the best people. You could even pay them human fucking wages, unlike ESL. Ooh, go crazy.
Yeah, I know. I mean, look, for me, mate, I mean, look, I've said this. There's just needs to be a major that establishes this new generation of kind of talent. You know, they missed out on a bunch of majors when we weren't having them, right? Yes. They could have conceivably worked. This one with PGL, they wanted to do the old boys. Realistically, I should never have been in the picture in the fucking first place. And I'll be clear about this. It's not just altruism on my part. Like, I don't really like event work. It's unbelievably stressful as a host, especially when you're working with productions that fall down because it's on you to fill those gaps, and it gets really stressful. And also, we're not like a broadcast in TV where, Charles Barkley and Shaq don't sit in the same green room when they're not filming. They come out, do their bit, see you next week, and go. And if they have to sit while they're doing shoots, they've got their own dressing room, and they're in their own and talking to their agents and making deals, or they've got their, families there. We're all in a room with each other. And so when little frictions start to occur, it's usually on someone with a bit of tact, someone outside of that to sort it all out. And, it was that major was the hardest event since Collusion of Poker. Also a major, also involving PGL. So it's not like I have a lot of fun at these events. And all you get is just vitriolic hatred from the community anyway. Either it's people who don't know who you are, don't know what you've done, saying who's this guy, because I'm not doing blast events or ESL online. It's people saying everyone else who's ever held a microphone can do a better job than you, or it's just lies. It's just lies and nonsense. Endless Reddit threads. We went from day 1, day 2, and day 3. Oh, it's really good to have Richard Lewis and Thorin back doing a show. It's really entertaining. I'm actually watching the analysis segments before, because, spoiler, they all say they want high-level analysis in the analysis segments, but you don't. We've all seen how the viewership dips whenever those guys are talking. You massively disrespect the likes of Maniac and Pimp when it's those two guys talking on a blast event when you fuck off, right? But you'll stick around and listen to some banter, won't you? What crazy shit will Thorin say about my favourite player? Will I be outraged? Will I laugh? You've got to dress. You need the analysis and the entertainment component to it. So we know what we're doing in that regard. And seriously, everyone was saying the viewership doesn't even dip on the analysis desk. It's like crazy. So I thought we were doing a good job. You get to day 4, one errant comment about Heroic maybe over-celebrating when they went 3-2 in a group they should have gone 3-0 in, and fired. You've got to be fired. You've got to be fired. You're unprofessional, you're a cunt, you're a scumbag, you're a liar. Here's something that happened in 2014, 2015. Here's a complete whacked out lying version about it. It's not fun, guys. It is never fun. I don't know what to tell you. I took that gig as a swan song because I can say, haha, fuck you, I can still get hired. Spoiler, could literally work this one too, right? No joke. Turning it down unequivocally. And also, just as for my own sense of legacy, I've worked major events in most years, done a lot of majors, done different roles, been a commentator, been an analyst. I've got a good broadcasting history, but I'm all right moving on. So I'm putting out there, definitely do not, you cannot make, if you hire the same, a similar talent, bringing back DDK, Jip, fuck you, PGL. No, now is the time. I want to see Scrawny and Launders do a major. I want to see Harry and Hugo do a major. I want to see Freya rock a major. It's in Antwerp. Shox wants to do more CS events. She really wants to do it. Yeah, so why can't we make a major? Why not be bold? Make a major like they do in TI, where you do bring someone in who doesn't know the game all that well and they come across. Listen, we did it at E-League. We had Golden Boy rocking a major in Boston. Did a great fucking job because he's just a talented guy. So it's do something new. Give us some excitement. I don't want same old, same old. The old boys thing was meant to be a send-off to all of us. People cling way too tight to that shit.
Oh, for sure.
So... those are my thoughts. I don't know if you have any others about it.
The thing was, I wasn't trying to make it breaking news. I won't be doing it, but spoiler, I won't be doing it as well. Yeah. And like I say, I'm not saying it to cock them either. Fair play to them that they offered the gig again. Look, it shows that they did appreciate our work. I like that factor. But yeah, I also agree. It's why I kept tweeting, and people were thinking I was just being melodramatic, because unfortunately they don't know I'm not of this generation, Rich, and I don't do things for likes on Twitter. They all thought I was trying to do the sort of sorry guys, this might be it, and then they think I want them from the crowd to go one more year, which by the way I always love when they do that at the jersey retirement. Listen, mate, it's good. Yeah, it's that at no time in history does it ever just stop and then go, I'm doing another year. It's too late, you idiots. You should have done that in his last game, but okay. I'm not doing that. I genuinely was at peace with the idea at that major. That might be the last CSGO event I ever worked. Especially major, because, spoiler, I am people. This is where people will never get it until the very end, Richard. Because the problem is they aren't like us. So they all think for real that I must have thought the second ESL got bought by that group, like, oh shit, I've said all that. I've said I'll never work with them, but now they're gonna have that. No, the joke is I'll never work with the ESL. That's it. Until they do what I said, name, shame, / and or fire the people who took the EPL spots. By the way, I intentionally paint myself in a corner with something I know they will never do. Until they do that, I will never work an ESL event, including majors. So if they get every major from now on, I won't be ever at the majors again. That's fine. Look, I think I could still do a banging job, and if it was the right major, I would like to work it, but I won't. That's it. I've had my time. I've done more majors than anyone else did as an analyst. It's all cool. I had a great time. I had some fucking, by the way, you think I even thought I would be there in 2021 after all the shit that happened to me in 2014 and then other years? Like,
yeah,
of course not. It's incredible to even get to that point. I genuinely believe when it comes to event work like a major, I think it's genuinely, you have to have gratitude for any major you ever worked. If you even work one or two, mate, you won. And especially, I'll throw this last detail in. Motherfucker, I was never even close. I wasn't even a million miles from being a fucking pro player. I never had a sniff of being a pro player in my entire life. And I did the most CSGO World Championships as a fucking analyst. So if you're a hater, just stuck on my nuts. It's all that's left for you at this point in time. You've got nothing left. I've taken everything from you. So I couldn't just keep fucking styling on you a victory lap.
Yeah.
I'll just peace out here, mate. It's cool. I've got other things to do as well. There's the other thing. I know none of you can believe this because you think CSGO's the world. This is like, I genuinely think this is like step one. I'm on to the next mountain, mate. It's the next one's coming.
Well, I mean, it's like, listen, it's similarly, I think about, what am I going to look back on as my achievements, when I'm 60 years old or whatever. And it's like, I mean, yeah, the broadcast stuff will be a part of it, but I want to get a book down. I want to,
Sure.
I'm teaching a course now. I'm an adjunct professor at a university in America. It's like, I'm doing all these. I got a speaking tour, mini speaking tours to do some networking to promote that coming up. It's like that. I'm like you. I'll occupy the time, and I think I don't like to just sit at the top and get all, like I don't like that. Like I could have stayed at A-League. I didn't. I took a risk. I could have. I could stay hosting. I could be an esports host. I could branch out into other games. People would hire me. I get approached for gigs still all the time. It's just I don't like to sit still. It's like, what am I proving by doing that?
I also think, dude, that was the perfect major for us to enter.
Yeah,
because
totally.
we'll never have that green room environment again. It's a different world. So to me, it's not like we can't do it. We could. It's just that this is also, it's like you said, sometimes you can just choose to go, yeah, have it's yours. Your turn now. I'm not gonna cling on like the fuckers right before us did, where they were the most miserly cunts of all time, trying to fuck over young people's dreams just to keep themselves one extra day of life.
I mean, that's the joke, isn't it? Like, think about how long we could have had those opportunities. We would have had longer careers. Like, so, I want to break that cycle in esports because, them old crusty fuckers that were telling us, oh, you've got no charisma, you'll never be good on camera, we don't think you're going to be well suited to an analysis desk. Have you seen what he's wearing? All that nonsense, right? Like, like those guys were deliberately stopping us having jobs when we could have had jobs. We had to rely on ridiculous favors, luck, or just one person to sort of break away from that fucking paradigm and just give us a chance. It's the only reason we ever had a broadcast career in the first place. Yep. And eventually, obviously, you give me a chance, I'll fucking run with it. I'll take the ball over the line, no matter what I have to do to get it there. Sometimes ridiculously so, to unhealthy levels, but that's just how my brain works. So we could have had longer careers if someone had just given us a fair chance back then. Remember 2013? I was nowhere near getting offered a chance to work a CSGO major. Nowhere near. DreamHack specifically said, like, that's not you. That's not what you do. And so I was a journalist at that event. So it is what it is. I had a good time. I'm not gonna keep that cycle of like, oh, I'm gonna be in my fucking 50s telling some fucking 20-year-old, you're not good enough. You learn from me. Give it another year or two.
Yeah.
Fuck that. Get out of the game and go do something else. It's right. Esports is a young person's industry at the end of the day.
Right.
Right. Back to the rule book, because one of the things I wanted to talk to you about. And then we'll do viewer questions. Basically, they're only doing one RMR tournament now per region. So they've consolidated the regions: Europe, America, Asia, right? Which I know that's like going to be banging because you've basically got Europe and CIS together, the Americas together, and Asia and Oceania together.
That's perfect.
Yeah, and should have. I mean, pretty sure we said this years ago, but all right, we get there in the end. But now you're not going to have these like multiple RMRs. You're going to have one RMR tournament per region, and that will just decide all the major teams, and that's going to give us some continuity. The problem with that, of course, is it can mean that some teams are going to get there based on one good run of form. It's very unforgiving. One bad day, one sick player, one accident. But I mean,
the best team in the world might not be there.
Yeah, but I mean, for me, listen. I almost feel like I've said for ages I like the DPC. I've probably been proven wrong about that because the total circuit, everyone's been hating it over there now, and it is sort of breaking apart, and it's had loads of fractured stuff, and we had all the stuff with the cancellation of the major and all that over in Dota, whatever. This is the only other way you can go. Just really streamline, simplify, one and done, and I can get on board with that too because it keeps the narrative arc of it all very simple. That's all. I like this change.
I echo similar sentiments. Like, as a principle, I much prefer the idea, essentially, of a true world ranking. Could, in this scenario, be other tournament results that count towards it. And that way, you ensure that, like, for example, the top 5 can never not be at the major. Because obviously that's a tragedy if that happens. But if I can't have that, and so far nobody's come anywhere close to executing that in esports, and especially not in games with multiple third-party tournament organisers, for obvious reasons, I would just say, use your fucking brain and look at the ESL ranking and ask yourself, do you really think they are just incompetent? Because, by the way, in every other area of the business, ESL's pretty competent. Do you imagine they just accidentally keep doing things that favour them and their circuit? They did it on purpose, you morons. It's a feature, not a bug. They know exactly every... The joke is, they almost get annoyed when people like me and Lurpers point out the problems because then they have to figure out a new way to rig the system to get exactly what they want. And they're almost like, yes, I know there's a problem. I'm going to fix it. And it's like, and I have to pretend to just be like, no, but sir, look, there's an issue here. Like, they have to pretend that they are taking my advice on board. So all I'll say is this. I just, so far, I've never seen anyone I could trust to run that circuit model. So I'm with you. If I have to go with an approach where it's going to be some sort of actual qualification tournament, make it one tournament, make it really sturdy, don't have any fuckery with different slots for regions, and then may the best team win. In that scenario, at least that way I can just say, right, the 7th best team didn't make it, Richard, but it's because in the tournament they lost to these 2 teams. I don't have to go, it's because they changed 2 players in March, and then in April they had another player change, and then a guy was ill for the thing, and then they placed 4th in the first one, but that only got you 450 points. Like, that story was probably the dumbest qualification system ever created, because no human could ever track the storylines. And you'll notice at the major, all we did is talk about the previous RMR. We didn't talk about any of the other shit because it was the worst system to narratively explain why those teams were there.
Not only that, the one RMR just before the major was the one that had the most waiting anyway. There was almost nothing at stake in that RMR. There was like 1 or 2 stories where teams could, would have not qualified.
Also fucked the RMR because since it was points based, it actually didn't matter if you came first for something. Hence why Nip never really got their shine for winning it, because everyone kind of felt like once some of these other teams made it to certain thresholds, they sort of just phoned it in, didn't they? So I also think the good news is this RMR, like that Europe CIS combined one, dude, that's like a major before the major. That's going to be a fucking banger, isn't it?
Yep. And like I said, the opportunity for like so many big names to fall by the wayside there is fucking great. So yeah, I like it. I like what's happening. I'm looking forward to the major. I hope PGL make the right hires to bring us a great broadcast. All the people who I've publicly endorsed, they've got my vote. And as I said as well at the time, if I'm going to talk to PGL and make sure we get a good alternative broadcast going. The No Majors Club will be back and running for that. And hopefully we can make that something special as well. And all of the talent who don't get hired, come and get at me, because you can articulate how pissed off you are about that on our broadcast, and it'll be straight fire. Right, viewer questions. As you know, if you sign up to our Patreon, you get to ask a question, any question at all, and we will answer it. So, Echo, What's your favorite movie genre, and which movie from that genre have you seen recently that you would absolutely recommend?
That's a tough one.
Mm,
Because I'm not really like a huge genre fan in that sense. Like I've always been someone who
right.
just watches all of it. Same with reading. For everything, mate, music. I'm the kind of person where like the best analogy ever would be when I was a kid. I never understood why people battled over which console game they had because I would just buy both consoles and buy the best games only. Like to me, it was a
No.
no-brainer. It's like why would I want to like have to pretend the eighth best Sega game is better than your best Nintendo game when it isn't? Like why not just get the best? So I've always done the same. So if I had to pick one, like I'm trying to think in terms of essentially, it's got to be something like it probably is like sci-fi, I'd imagine, something along those lines. Because I've seen a lot
Yeah.
of movies that were in that sort of genre. So I'm trying to think, what have I seen recently that would be sci-fi though? I'll give you one because it's one I rewatched not that long ago. Admittedly, this was one of those ones you can imagine. After the show, when I relax in the Netherlands, if that's enough. I don't know. That's more Quaid. There we go. It's just fucking shocked here
I
in
know.
2022. Okay, that what I like to rewatch movies.
Ray Duncan, you live in the Netherlands and you smoke weed.
I'd
Fucking
like to
hell.
rewatch
Mad lad.
classic movies that you haven't seen in years in that scenario, right? So one I did
Yeah.
watch recently was Event Horizon, which is obviously a banger.
Hit the eyes, just classic banter.
It's basically,
Love
if
that.
people don't know, there've been very few movies. There's been tons of tried to make like fucking Lovecraft type movies, but they always fall flat. This one isn't even a Lovecraft movie, but it's in that genre clearly,
Yeah.
like the vein of what they're
Cosmic
trying
horror,
to.
yeah.
But they do a really good job with it. Actually, this one's a fucking banger.
Yeah, I love Event Horizon. It's basically like if Eli Roth remade Solaris. It's sort of how I would describe it to anyone, you know.
Good elevator pitch.
Yeah, it's a good movie. I mean, it's one of those ones where it's over the top, it's schlocky, but the imagery, the kind of pacing of it,
Stay with you for a while, for sure.
yeah, totally.
Good cast as well.
Yeah, great cast, great. Everyone's really leaning into it as well, loving the roles. So for me, I love fucking detective and noir movies. I watch them all the time. I mean, obviously everyone knows I'm a massive horror buff. I won't harp on about that. Horror is my number one genre. It's the thing I've got the most like knowledge of, and I mean a literal encyclopedic knowledge of the history of horror. I own every Blu-ray Arrow have put out. I love all the obscure horror movies. But when that is like a fun thing, that's like a nerdy fun thing for me. Actual sitting down, getting some good head scratching stuff. I do like noir, and I do like sort of, I'd say detective movies. Probably the genre would be like thriller, I guess.
Okay.
Hitchcockian style stuff. And I'm trying to think what I've watched or rewatched recently. That I would recommend. I mean, it's a hard sell to the younger generation to tell them to go away and watch stuff like fucking, I don't know, fucking Maltese Falcon
All the old
or
Bogart ones.
yeah, or Out of the Past. There's another good one with Robert Mitchum. Third Man, obviously, legendary stuff. Like I legitimately love those movies and watch those movies. But if you want a good kind of like modern noir procedural, there's a few. So first up, I think a lot of people might have seen Zodiac by now. If you haven't watched that, Zodiac is a legit movie. That's obviously the David Fincher one. It's about the true story of the Zodiac killer. And it's got Robert Downey Jr., Jake Gyllenhaal, good cast, very good movie, and factually accurate, good attention to detail. I think it's a little bit underrated, if anything. I also watched one that was also based on a true story out of Korea. It's about 20 years old, but it's been real hard to get over here because of the
Memories of Murder, I'm guessing.
Memories of Murder. There you go. Yeah, great film, right? It's by the guy who directed Parasite.
Yes.
So there's that. That's a good one. Obviously, Big Lebowski's a classic, a bit of a comedic element to it, but has all the thriller and noir elements that you want from those movies. So yeah, any of them. I mean, Big Lebowski's one of the best films of all time, in my opinion. Oh, and I'll say this: I know everyone hates Rian Johnson because he's a fucking loser, and he wrecked Star Wars forever. But Knives Out is a good film, and they've just announced the sequel for it on Netflix, which I will be watching. So, Watch Dogs. What is the best kind of dog, and why is it a communist dog? I don't really know what that means.
What's the reference to why it's communist?
I don't know. Do I need to Google communist dog, Sam? Have I missed the news story? Is it just that, Comrade Doggo? Is that what he's talking about? Know your meat? It's just one of them Doge dogs with like
All
a
right, fair enough.
Soviet hat on. I don't know. Watch Doge. I don't know what's
Do you
going
have a
through your
favourite
mind.
breed of dog?
Me? Oh, it's hard, like, because I just really like all dogs. You know what I mean? Like, there's not a dog breed I dislike.
I find that that's a weird angle. Here's the thing, like for me, once you get a relationship with them, they're all pretty much the same. Like they're all awesome. Like the breed part only matters, I think, when you're like looking at someone else's dog. Like once you have a dog, you love any. If you like dogs, you just love any breed of dog once you get it. You know.
Yeah, there are aspects to it. Like, I really like border collies. I mean, they're very high functioning dogs. They're very intelligent. But they need constant stimulation. In that regard, they're not a dog that you can come in, scratch its head, and it's going to sit down by the fire and relax. They're up, they're alert, they want attention, they want activities, they want to do things. But you can train them to do almost anything. That's why they're one of the dogs that we use for shepherding and stuff like that. But it's not just that as well. Certain dogs get different types of health problems. I think there was something in the news recently about how like they're going to make the breeding of the traditional British bulldog illegal, I think, or something
Basically,
like that.
if people don't know, a lot of those like pug and bulldog type,
Yeah,
they
it's
all have problems like breathing and stuff, mate. Like essentially, they're not
evil
supposed to exist. They're like abominations, basically.
No, it's really bad.
Because people think it's cute, and it's like, mate, it can't fucking breathe. What have you done? What the fucked up thing is that?
It's really, it's such a strange area because it's like domestication. We did a number on some of these dogs. Like, there are some that were bred for purpose, right? Which is, fine. And there's a reason why dogs are some of our oldest, like, animal companions, sure. But like I say, stuff like pugs, bulldogs, where it's bred for aesthetics. Nah, you can't be doing that. And like I say, pugs, what? Like, I'm like you. I look at a pug, it's cute, but I also know in my brain that shouldn't exist.
For sure.
It's sad.
There's a whole bunch like that though, mate. Like the dachshund essentially has a fucked back and fucking hips whole life. The maddest one ever is apparently golden retrievers. Like a third of them just get cancer, which is like, of all the fucking dogs, the ones get cancer, those ones. Like the ones in theory the most lovable ones. So like I have to say in general, this is just bias from my area I'm from, mate. In general, it's sort of like terrier type dogs. If you know the area I'm from, every fucker has one. Every fucking cunt in Yorkshire / the Northeast has one of those dogs. Everyone.
Yeah.
At some point.
Yeah, it's true. Orky says, this is for Rich. Would you like to do a Dota 2 event if you were ever asked? So, spoiler,
I have done back in time to do that though.
Spoiler, I have done a Dota event.
That's true. You did one with your company, right? World Series Esports.
I did one, and that was where we had Arteezy and Sumail as analysts, which was like super cool for the time. They'd never done any analyst work. They were still active players. We did a lot of good work there, I thought. And I found out a lot of stuff about the Dota scene from doing that event. But would I do another one? I mean, having just gone on a rant about how like it's my time and I don't want to do broadcast stuff. One thing I would do is like I'll always go and do a new game if approached, or like if for whatever reason like Dota 2 came calling and said, "Do you want to host an event?" Yeah, I'd hit the gym, I'd lose some weight, I'd go over there and put a suit on and try and fit in. I know a lot of the talent over there. I mean, this seems to blow a lot of people's minds in Dota. Hilarious. I did an episode of the Richard Lewis Show recently with Kyle from Dota. He's like their iconoclast. He's kind of a you in Dota. He's iconoclastic. He says players are bad when they're bad and everyone hates him because of it. The only difference was he was a former player who sort of didn't quite make it, but whatever. He was from Hon, So anyway, I really like Kyle. I fuck with Kyle. I think he's a good guy, and I think every esport needs somebody who tells it like it is, right? And so we did an episode of the podcast. Now, if you know anything about Dota content, it does not bang because the community don't appreciate good content. They want memes. And what good content can you have in a community where talent are too scared to express opinions because they want to work TI and they don't want to upset Valve, and they can't upset the community and they can't upset the players because those players are some of the softest bitches ever. So when I did that episode, people were saying to me, You've been rejected in CS and now you're doing Dota content for the money. And literally that was the prevailing sentiment in that thread about Kyle. Now, spoiler, I do the Richard Lewis show to interview people I just want to have a conversation with. Sometimes just catching up with old friends. I use it as a precursor to basically sit down for 2 hours with someone I care about, right? And so sometimes I'll have a guest on. It'll do 10,000. Now, the Kyle episode did like that, 10, 11, 12. I don't know. That's not a lot of viewership. Certainly doesn't make any money. A video of me like recording the fucking like talking about the Overwatch League and how it's going to shit, and me doing a stupid face in the thumbnail gets 30k. So if I wanted the money, I would just do that shit. But so it's clearly not about the money. So I'd like to go over there. They're good people, but the problem you've got is what would happen on air wouldn't reflect what what I'm about and what I want to put on the show. So we got to do that at WSOE. And even then, I mean, I saw some outrageous shit, mate. Like the way they treated Moxie and stuff at that event. It was a real eye opener to me. Just how many dirtbags are in the Dota community, despite all the moral posturing to the contrary. So
the worst fans in terms of a games fans, the worst fans I've ever seen.
Yeah, I think so. I think that still holds true. It's kind of, I don't know. There's some, we've had some movement in other areas, but yeah. So I would, but it'd have to be the right one with the right people. But it'll never happen anyway. So who cares? Reykjavik asks, now that Microsoft have announced their intent to purchase Activision Blizzard, will the Overwatch League now be exclusively viewable in Edge to try and boost viewership? No. In fact, what I think is going to be very interesting is, because that deal's not going to go ahead for probably a year or two. It's going to be investigated by the US government as a matter of course. That's not a surprise to anyone. That, the Antitrust Commission has to look at these things. But remember, the Overwatch League itself is already being looked at by the Antitrust Commission. They're already trying to make a case that it's a monopsony, or however you say it, which is true. It functionally is. I'm going to be intrigued to see what Microsoft do. If the Overwatch League is still a thing by then, when the deal is finalized, which I'm guessing it won't be, but if it is, I don't know if Microsoft are going to want to take on their esports products. Like the Call of Duty League's doing well, but even that's had a big drop off in viewership so far this season. That's my understanding, and that's the successful one. Overwatch League is in all sorts of trouble, and how can you justify the money? So I don't know. For me, there's a chance Microsoft might pull the plug. I think so. So whatever.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, I've got friends who work on that broadcast, and I don't want them to be unemployed. But I think,
but for the greater good, mate, it has to die. Not least because, by the way,
I think that's fair.
Even people who are friends of mine who own Overwatch League teams, Richard, they have to learn the hard way. They wouldn't listen. They wouldn't listen for all these years. They must learn by losing all the shit that they put into that game. Everything has to end up being worth nothing at all. And when that happens, some of these guys are legit and they will actually eventually own it and move forwards in their careers and hopefully not make the same mistake again.
Yeah, I hope so. These type of big bombastic esports projects generally tend to end the way we're seeing. BP420 says, I don't have a question, but I would just like to remind everyone that the Dallas Cowboys' most recent Super Bowl appearance is older than the Nintendo 64.
Like 1994 something meant.
Get fucked, you insufferable twats.
Fair play.
That's a good one. That's his best one yet, I think.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll just add to that. For me, the Cowboys, it's like they are a riddle of a team because they've had some unbelievable talent.
The last few years, they've had some mega rosters on both sides of the ball. Yeah. Fucking hell, guys.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
And it's shocking that. I mean, think about it as well. Just had some of the best playoffs of all time. You know what I mean? No Cowboys. What the fuck? Like, it's fucking crazy. Like, so, you want to...
I'll just say this. I'll just do this for my own obvious axe to grind. I'll just say this. When we're having discussions about how good quarterbacks are, we're not going to talk about the guy who talks to the quarterback's ear and tell them what plays to make. Aaron Rodgers was winning MVPs with Mike McCarthy. Now, here's the thing. At the beginning of when he was with him, he was still a pretty good play caller as far as I can tell. He was always trying a good West Coast offense passer. Those last years, Aaron Rodgers was fucking carrying that guy's bitch ass. Like, you've seen he's garbage. He's not only bad, he's one of those guys where he does all the old school boomer mistakes as well. Like, he just fucking mismanages the clock, goes for the wrong fucking kick. So that guy's terrible right now. He's a fucking joke, Mike McCarthy is at the moment.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. You know, they're making a lot of change ups in the staff. I think they're bringing in some coach. Can't remember his name now, but they're bringing in someone to specifically work with wide receivers.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't know. So, but yeah, there's a couple of moves and shakes going on behind the scenes at the time of recording this. But I mean, listen, as I said, the talent they've squandered, yeah, it's shocking.
Oh, it's outrageous, isn't it?
Yeah. Lonnie, not a question. I love this. Just wanted to say that Battlefield 2042 is absolute dog shit. I mean, that is true. Seems like every mainstream game, I hate the term AAA games because that implies a quality product. Also agree with that sentiment. From big studios is just an unfinished turd, either riddled with loads of bugs and or questionable design decisions. Well, you see, Lonnie, the problem we've got in the games industry, my friend, is this, and that is that every time a game comes out and gets absolutely wrecked and absolutely panned and is a provable piece of shit and people don't like it, guess what gets announced 1 week later? Record sales, record pre-orders.
Yep.
It's really hard to be a consumer advocate in the game space because the consumers are their own worst enemy. Do you want to know what's mad? EA announced, and Sam will be fucking loving this. EA went and said that the games that made him the most money last year, FIFA goes without saying, but they also said that version of NFL, the one that everyone's complaining about, the game balance is fucking out of whack. It's completely broken and it has fewer features than even the one before it. That was it. That was one of the best-selling NFL games of all time. So, people
can't win then, can you? The incentive structure's fucked.
If you have to send a message with your wallets, guys. Yep. Or this is what you're getting. Yes, BF 2042, absolute dog shit. Had to laugh at PC Gamer's review of it, where they were like, "Yeah, this is everything a Battlefield game should be." Meanwhile, people who actually play Battlefield spewing because it's absolutely garbage. So, yeah, it's tough. It's tough, but that's what you get. Jerky's Minion. Why should the next major be opened up with a hardcore TLC match? That's tables, ladders, and chairs for non-wrestling fans instead of some dumbass music spectacle. Discuss. Listen. I'd like to see something different. To your point, because I know you're making a joke, Jerky, but I don't like these musical numbers at esports events. I wish we would stop trying to tack either an opener or a finisher with a musical event. Like even the one at the Major where it was like, it's flashbang dance. It's sort of meant to be from within esports. Garbage. Like, I'm sorry. Like it's meant to be. It's a serious sporting event, and it's not like we're getting halftime show caliber levels of fucking artists, is it? It's not like
that's the bigger problem as well as the artists, isn't it? Because there's the other thing, right? Listen, obviously, you'd have a hard time picking some of these now because they are pretty old. Some of them won't be bands anymore. The obvious angle, if you wanted a real rock music guest for me, if you do a CS major, would be get one of those new metal bands that were in all the Frag movies. Oh, listen, it goes without saying you can't get Linkin Park anymore, but like, I don't know, fucking Limp Bizkit, Korn. Mate, if you had one of these bands play a fucking show, I'll watch. But again, I'm not, as you say, I'm not watching fucking some shit thing like, this is vaguely, like, I thought that flashbang dance was fucking whack. It was whack.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Like, I'm not talking about the dance itself. That's totally fine. But that actual fucking, like, that was so cringe. It was unreal, mate. Yeah. I wasn't feeling that at all.
Yeah. So it's just like, I don't want those. I don't want those events at all. At esports, and they're always cringe. They never go over well. And also as well, just think about, just know your audience. What are you expecting? What, everyone's going to get up and start dancing with you or whatever? No, they're there. They want to watch games. They're nerds. Some of them are out the house for the first time ever. Just don't have that shit. It's a waste of money and time. Chingu, this is the last question, by the way. How does Liquid EG need to play in Europe to stop being... How long does Liquid and EG need to play in Europe to stop being considered an NA team? It seems like they get the benefits of being an NA team while being in Europe for the majority of the time. It's a weird one. I mean, look, the reality is when we make that distinction of NA and European, I've always just, for me, the org. That's how I think of it conceptually. Like, I mean, Complexity was still an NA org, even when it had a bunch of European players on the roster.
Remember Cloud9?
Yeah, Cloud9. It's an NA org. NA is their territory. You would imagine their fan base, most of it comes from NA. But obviously, especially during the pandemic and the online era, you had to decamp to somewhere in Central Europe. It was the only way it was going to work. So a lot of that was born out of necessity rather than true choice. And so for me, that's just how I'd do it. Now, obviously, if I'm talking about a team, in what flag you would put next to it, the rule of thumb is just a majority, like 3 players, that decides it. But I mean, for me, I don't think there is a way that you can talk about Team Liquid EG as not being an NA team. What they would have to do, essentially, to get that is they would have to have an entirely European roster, play exclusively in Europe, move the headquarters to Europe, you know what I mean? And even then, you would still, for us oldies, we would still think of them in North American terms, I think. So I don't know if there's a way to ever truly become European in that sense. I mean, because like you think we go the other way. Team Liquid is technically a European org.
Yes.
Their headquarters are in Belgium, right?
In CS, obviously, you think of them there. Yeah, of course.
So
no, they're in Netherlands headquarters.
Netherlands, sorry, yeah, my bad. So I don't know if there is a conceivable world. And with that said, shout out to our patrons, our $100 patrons: Benakagi, Carve, Cathal, Cred, Jerky's Minion, Marcus Kjumpar, Michael, Tobias Bernasconi, Will the Weed Wrangler, and our $50 patrons: Adam Ox, Alex C, Airhammer, Bren, BP420, Canapacito, CMAC1991, Echo, Fursock, Gerhan Kaya, Detlef Insomniac, Judas, Miss Alcoholic, Nolan, Atarian, Reykjavik on Steam, Sard Sawar, Samuel Hatama, Satan, Sinks C, the Bitcoin Cash Podcast, Thomas Laws, Tim Frost, Lonnie, Watch Doge, Zumba and Sarathenia. That was By the Numbers. We'll see you next time. Until then, take care of yourself.